Chapter 4866. Arriving at this space, Zichen was slightly startled, somewhat confused. The cloak behind him was still there, and Shui Shang did not appear. Zichen stared at the space in front of him. There was nothing in this space. It was empty. What the hell? He looked at the trial taker's token in his hand. How did he end up here? Oh, who was I? So it's little Zichen. Suddenly, a sarcastic voice sounded. Zichen turned his head and saw a person standing next to him. It's you? His eyes flashed coldly. The person who came was none other than King Giching from another world. Who else could it be? King Giching walked to Zichen and glanced at him. I didn't expect that a little Zichen like you would come so quickly. Did you break through to become an evil demon, or did you take the back door? Zichen looked at him coldly. King Giching approached and sneered. Are you here to kill me? Why don't I give you the chance now? I'll stand here and see if you have the ability. Don't you have Lu Duan? Come, start from here. He tilted his head and used his hand to draw on his neck, full of provocation. Zichen's eyes turned colder. You're angry? I haven't told you how we tortured that Tao protector back then. You seem to care about her. Is she your little girlfriend? King Giching smacked his lips and said, Thinking about it now, it still feels good. That perfect body, that struggling movement, that ecstatic voice. You will die. You will all die. Zichen's body surged with endless killing intent, but it was just killing intent, there was no power. There seemed to be an invisible seal that fell on his body. Your expression, I'm so scared. Unfortunately, fighting is forbidden here, so you can only stare. King Giching smiled proudly. After coming here, did you stupidly find that there is nothing here? That's because you didn't get any points, so of course you can't see anything. The Chosen One is prepared for those who have accumulated points. After saying that, King Giching laughed and walked away. However, after taking a dozen steps, he suddenly stopped and looked back at Zichen. I say, if you want to kill me, you better hurry up because I will soon be able to gather enough points to exchange for the God's Chosen One armor. Once I have the God's Chosen One armor, I will be invincible. Perhaps at that time, I will be the one chasing after you. Looking at Zichen's clenched fists, King Giching shook his head in disdain. Look at you, little Zichen. You don't have any shrewdness at all. Your emotions are written all over your face. What qualifications do you have to be a demon? Do you know how to control your emotions? Of course, you wouldn't understand even if I told you. After all, you're so childish. King Giching smiled. By the way, aren't you curious as to why we are living such a carefree life while you are struggling to survive? In fact, it's very simple. When the seal was broken, we found many good things left behind by our master. We didn't know how to use them in the spiritual realm, but we found their wonderful uses here. King Giching disappeared, leaving Zichen alone. He was very emotional. King Giching, who should have disappeared, reappeared. Don't be angry. If you die from anger, I won't be happy. Because now, it's not you who wants to kill me, but me who wants to kill you. Don't worry, I'll find you after we get out. This time, King Giching really left. Zichen was full of anger. His enemy was right in front of him, but he couldn't kill him. The encounter this time had strengthened his killing intent. Zichen! A voice sounded, and the white-robed old man appeared. Zichen's expression softened as he saluted the white-robed old man with cupped fists. You've come earlier than we expected, said the old man with a smile. The white-robed old man looked at Zichen and nodded with a smile. Fighting is forbidden. Even if you are angry, you must suppress it. Understood. Come, let me explain the situation here to you. The white-robed old man led Zichen forward. As the white-robed old man waved his hand, Zichen, who couldn't see anything before, saw some things on display. Killing one extra-legal demon will give you 1 point. Points can be exchanged for things here. To get this right, you have to kill 10 extra-legal demons. I don't know if it's because of the many years of seal, but the extra-legal demons that appeared this time are extremely powerful. They are beyond our expectations. I believe you already know this. Extralegal demons have different kinds of power. This kind of power is a kind of immortal Dharma power. The white-robed old man pointed at his feet. And this is a part of the immortal Dharma world that we simulated. These are God's chosen skills, these are God's chosen weapons, and these are special items. Zichen looked at the dazzling array of items. Beside them were marked with points. The cheapest only cost a few points, while the most expensive ones cost a few hundred points. I tried to refine them before, but I found that I couldn't refine my weapons. Zichen didn't understand. Why is that? Because they are made of different materials. They are all items from the spiritual realm. Naturally, they can't be upgraded with the help of immortal Dharma power. The white-robed old man explained. Take your flowing saber for example. If you want it to be upgraded and have the same power as a God's chosen weapon, you have to break down the God's chosen weapon and re-inject its energy into the flowing saber to change its foundation. But this is obviously superfluous. Gushan gave up on the flowing saber because he didn't want to go through so much trouble. Instead of wasting time breaking it down, it's better to use a new one. In the end, the white-robed old man said, "Do your best. We have high hopes for you." Not everyone who came here had the privilege of being explained by the white-robed old man. The reason Zichen received preferential treatment, apart from their previous friendship, was that they had high hopes for Zichen. They felt that Zichen was qualified to be their guide. Zichen received a trial taker's token, but there were no points on it. So he could only look at the items. Shuishang didn't come out to take a look. After looking around once, Zichen's heart stirred, and he left this place. Zichen reappeared at his original spot. He didn't immediately go back. Instead, he stood there and injected extralegal energy into his weapon. Because he hadn't refined any extralegal energy, his actual battle strength hadn't increased by much. He had always relied on external items to kill his enemies. After he finished injecting energy, Zichen looked for a new target. Not long after, an extralegal demon attacked him. He didn't use a bow, so he was naturally killed by Zichen. Chapter 48-67. Zichen's original plan was to collect 10 points before returning. After all, the extralegal demons here could be killed with a combination attack. However, after killing one, they encountered another extralegal demon with a bow and arrow. Zichen decided to return. After returning, the first thing he did was inform everyone about the trial decree. Everyone was shocked when they heard the news. Killing 10 extralegal demons was only the beginning. Even now, they did not have the combat power to fight an extralegal demon one-on-one. Zichen also told them about the situation of the people in Gushan realm. Compared to Miao Miao and the others, those guys were living better and more carefree. "We miscalculated," Basho said with regret. "If we knew Gushan left these things behind, we would have searched for them when we left. Then we wouldn't have to live so miserably. What was done was done. There was no use regretting it. Everyone should focus on improving their own strength and quickly become independent." Fortunately, Zichen was here. Otherwise, their situation would be even more difficult. "What's in there?" Qiongqi asked curiously. "Is there anything suitable for us?" "There's God's chosen armor. There are many types, but the price is extremely high. It's the most valuable thing. Weapons are second. Relatively speaking, the price of those God's chosen skills is very reasonable. They are also the most plentiful." Zichen looked at the bone eagle. "There's something called the eagle technique. It costs 3 points to exchange. As for the other techniques, they range from a few to dozens, or even higher." Zichen saw these through the privilege of the white-robed old man. Therefore, he remembered these things. Presumably, others would not be able to see them so thoroughly. According to Zichen's guess, under normal circumstances, one would be able to see the corresponding things based on the number of points one had. However, if you want to cultivate those things, you have to make sure your own strength changes. Zichen said. Right now, everyone still has to refine their strength. When he said this, everyone felt embarrassed. They did not do much, but they had a lot of energy to use. On the other hand, Zichen, who had the most killing power, could not improve his combat power. When you become stronger, I will naturally become stronger as well. Zichen guessed what everyone was thinking and smiled as he said, You all refine your energy first. I'll take advantage of my special status to get some more points. In the following days, Zichen left early in the morning and returned late at night. Sometimes he would reap some rewards, and sometimes he would run back in a sorry state. His combat strength did not improve much, but his points were increasing. Currently, he had 10 points, but Zichen had no intention of exchanging them. As Meow Meow and the rest had been refining their powers, they had improved tremendously as well. Their auras were not much different from the extra-legal demons. Just as Zichen's points reached 15, the group, who had made great progress, decided to go out and hunt the extra-legal demons together. The 8-headed snake tail whizzed over and whipped the body of the extra-legal demon, who was about to escape, but was once again knocked back. Zichen stood guard in the distance. This time, he did not make a move, but the flowing blade and the sword of lightning were ready to attack at any time. The energy in the sky surged. The retreating extra-legal demon met the scarlet ape. The other party punched down, and was evenly matched with the extra-legal demon. Then the scarlet ape punched again and again, its battle intent high. It was not so much killing the enemy as training itself. The Cheongchi and the bone eagle stood on both sides. After the scarlet ape retreated, they went up one after another to fight the extra-legal demon. During this time, the extra-legal demon used many escape techniques, but it was forced back each time. Meow Meow's spells could be used again. With the power of dozens of extra-legal demons, everyone finally had the battle strength to fight the extra-legal demon. Chung Ho and the Frost Maiden's moves were also stronger because of the transformation of their powers. This was only a partial transformation. Once the power was fully transformed, their battle strength would be even stronger. Originally, Zichen alone killed the extra-legal demon to supply everyone. Now, it was everyone's turn to supply Zichen. After returning, Zichen cultivated at full speed. The power of the extra-legal demon entered his body and began to transform Zichen's power. When Meow Meow and the others went out to hunt, they would also refine the energy. Everyone was improving. Die! On the battlefield, the 8 heads, who had transformed into his true form, flew up and bit a extra-legal demon tightly. The power around the extra-legal demon shook, and countless wind blades appeared around him, cutting everything. Blood splattered as the 8 heads tore the other party's body apart. There were hundreds of bloody wounds on the 8 heads' body. Fortunately, they were only wounds and were not fatal. And because of the transformation of his own power, the power could not remain on the wounds, and his injuries healed quickly. In his human form, the 8 heads looked at the corpse on the ground and laughed mockingly. You extra-legal demons must have never thought that this day would come, right? Ha ha, from now on, no one here can suppress me, the 8 heads. The laughing 8 heads suddenly saw someone walking over from afar. He looked over and was surprised. Oil Black, why are you here? Next to Oil Black was a middle-aged man. You know him? The middle-aged man looked at Oil Black and asked, Where did this guy come from? A ray of light approached from afar, and Meow Meow and the others came to the 8 heads' side. Oil Black looked at everyone and said, Sorry. Oil Black, what are you doing? Who is this guy? Why are you acting like a grandson beside him? The 8 heads frowned. He could see Oil Black's attitude. Oil Black did not answer the 8 heads' question. Instead, he looked at the middle-aged man and said, King Qin, Zichen was with them. They are in cahoots. The middle-aged man was none other than King Giching. After meeting Zichen previously, he had indeed embarked on a journey to find Zichen. I've finally found you. King Giching smiled faintly and looked at the crowd. Damn it, you guys are like a bunch of rats. You made it difficult for me to find you. Oil Black, what kind of dog is this? The 8 heads' eyes flashed coldly. Where did you pick it up from? Damn you! I'm here to send you on your way. King Giching took out a sword and slashed forward. Whoosh! A sword she with extra-legal power went straight for the 8 heads. The 8 heads revealed his true form, and his power surged out to block the sword. As the sword chi passed, the 8 heads' attack was destroyed, and 2 of his heads were cut off. When the others saw this, their expressions changed. You bastard, you're the first one. Remember, my name is Gaching. Chapter 48-68. The 8-headed beast's 8 heads all left its body, and its huge body fell to the ground. King Gaching looked at this scene and said mockingly, I heard that you were seniors from the same era as Master. Is this all you've got? Old Black's eyelids twitched. This was too powerful. Meow Meow and the others did not even have time to react. The other party's 2 swords had already brought about such a shocking effect. Don't rush, one by one! Looking at the shocked crowd, King Gaching smiled coldly. Everyone has a share. His eyes landed on Meow Meow and wandered around her body. You can live. I've always been very patient with beauties. Meow Meow's eyes had a hint of murderous intent. You can live too. He looked at Ice Maiden again. Her casual attitude showed that she did not care about these existences at all. The auras around Bone Eagle and Cheong-Chi became violent. Although they usually bickered with the 8-headed beast, they could not bear to see it die. After all, there were not many who survived from that era. At this moment, Scarlet Ape shouted, Don't be rash, run! As soon as Scarlet Ape finished speaking, a beam of light flew out from the 8-headed beast's corpse. It was the 8-headed beast. Beast, wait until your grandfather recovers! The 8-headed beast flew towards Scarlet Ape, not forgetting to leave a ruthless sentence. Oh, not dead? King Gaching's eyes had a hint of surprise. He slashed with his sword again, and the sword energy came forward. Boom! Scarlet Ape exploded. Its huge body was like a solid wall, blocking the sword energy. Its body was immediately penetrated by the sword energy, and blood splattered everywhere. Run! Ignoring its injuries, Scarlet Ape shouted again. It'll be too late if we don't run now! Yes, Scarlet Ape was running this time. Another powerful aura appeared in the sky. Someone else was coming. Go! Everyone was decisive. They would not fight to the death just because of this junior's mockery. Bone Eagle flew forward, grabbed Scarlet Ape with its sharp claws, and flew into the distance. At the same time, Cheong-Chi also left with Meow Meow, Chung-Ho, and Ice Maiden. The 2 existences showed their full speed, turning into streams of light and flying into the distance. Old Black looked at this scene and felt sad. After all, they were great figures in the past, and they had fallen to such a state. He felt very upset. Ah, you're escaping just like that? You're not behaving like a senior at all, right? Even so, King Gaching paused for a moment, and waited for the other 2 kings behind him to catch up before continuing his pursuit. He was not stupid. He was worried that this was a ploy by these people. We're going to beat him when he's down, King Gaching shouted as he gave chase. The 3 of them traveling together gave him a lot of confidence. Zichen was condensing energy in the main hall. During this period of time, he had made great progress, and his combat strength had increased significantly. Along with the increase in battle strength, the power of the lightning controlling technique and the lightning sword also increased a lot. Suddenly, he opened his eyes and felt that the chi of heaven and earth around him had become chaotic. Zichen, run! Qian's voice entered the hall, sounding very anxious. Zichen flew out of the main hall, his cloak fluttering behind him. From afar, he could see that everyone was flying over. Scarlet Ape was heavily injured, and its 8 heads were in a weak soul state. What happened? Zichen was very surprised. According to everyone's battle strength, even if they were not a match for the extra-legal demon, it should not be like this. Run, the people of Gashan Domain are here! Cheong-Chi shouted. They're behind us. There are 3 of them. Haha, Zichen, I've been looking for you for a long time. I didn't expect you to be hiding here. Zichen heard King Gaching's laughter. Within the range of his soul power, Zichen saw 3 kings chasing after him. All 3 of them had weapons in their hands, and they turned into streaks of light. Young master, their battle strength is very strong. The 8 heads were reduced to such a state in just one exchange. Seemingly seeing that Zichen intended to stay, Miao Miao reminded him. Zichen's expression changed. He thought of the god's chosen technique. The reason for the huge difference in battle strength between the two sides was that the other party had cultivated the god's chosen technique. You guys go first. Zichen glanced at the crowd and controlled the sword of lightning to fly into the distance. The lightning sword turned into a bolt of lightning and went straight for King Giching. Child's play! King Giching smiled disdainfully and slashed with his sword again. Accompanied by a waterfall, Zichen's lightning sword was knocked away. Zichen felt the power of the sword and called back the lightning sword. After hesitating again, he followed the others. After running for a distance, Zichen suddenly changed his direction. You guys are so unique. King Giching glanced at Zichen and chased after Zichen without hesitation. The other two were somewhat hesitant. When Miao Miao and the others realized that something was wrong, the two sides were already far apart. She did not chase after them. After thinking for a while, she said to split up. The two sides separated again. Scarlet Ape, 8 heads, and Bone Eagle went together. Miao Miao, Chung Ho, Han Nu, and Cheong Chi went together. The two who were originally hesitating became even more hesitant. They did not know how to chase. Don't worry about the others. Let's kill Zichen first. At this moment, King Giching's voice came from afar. He instantly understood that Zichen wanted to split up and kill them one by one. Of course, he would not be fooled. Miao Miao and the others were not to be feared. They could be killed or not. However, Zichen must die because he was too much of a threat. When he was just a saint venerable, he made them unable to eat or sleep in peace. Now that he had become a demon, he was even more of a threat. Fortunately, they came here. If they were still in the saint spirit realm, they would have been killed by Zichen long ago. Hearing the voice, the two chased after Zichen. Blackie, ask your men to watch where those fellows escaped to. After we kill Zichen, we will go and kill them one by one. Anyone who has anything to do with Zichen must die. After the Honorable King rules this place and becomes the #1 person, we will go back and destroy Zichen's world. Before disappearing, King Giching did not forget to remind Blackie who was following behind. Of course, he was only Blackie now. Zichen did not expect that King Giching and the others could really find him. Knowing that their target was him, Zichen took the initiative to leave them. On one hand, he wanted them to be safe. At the same time, he wanted to find an opportunity to kill them. As the three chased after him, Zichen knew that Miao Miao and the others were safe. It would be difficult for him to seize the opportunity. Therefore, he did not hesitate to escape. 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 Or escape. This feeling had not appeared for a long time. At least, it had been a long time since he was in such a sorry state. Zichen had the ability to kill any one of the three. However, Zichen did not have much confidence in the three of them working together. Moreover, there was not only one person in Gishan realm. There was a group. Zichen was worried that there would be others following and setting up an ambush. He heard King Giching's words. Therefore, he could not die. As long as he was alive, these people's attention would be on him. His friends would be safe. Suddenly, an arrow pierced through the air. Chapter 48-69. By the time Zichen sensed the danger, the arrow was already nearing. Without hesitation, he took out the black mountain to block it. The arrow exploded, and the mountain blocked the attack. Zichen slowed down slightly. The three people behind him were quickly approaching. King Giching laughed. Little turtle, don't run. Let's fight a few hundred rounds. Zichen did not respond. The extra-legal demon shot again, but the second arrow was blocked by the mountain. Zichen frowned. Was this guy determined to deal with him? Couldn't he see that there were 3 more targets behind him? At this moment, a sword light appeared behind him. The distance between them was shortened again. Blocked in front and chased behind. Zichen was anxious. He turned around and slashed with his saber. The mountain chopping technique dissolved the sword chi. But that was all. One! 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 Arrows pierced through the air. The extra-legal demon seemed to have noticed that Zichen was in trouble, so he was even closer this time. The sound of the bowstring vibrating could be heard clearly. Zichen was furious, but there was nothing he could do. He could only continue to run, trying to change directions. The extra-legal energy surrounding the mountain had long disappeared, and there was no time to replenish it. The thunder sword and the flowing saber were the same. King Giching stood in the air, looking at the fleeing Zichen. He smiled proudly. "Zichen, take my heavenly lost sword Qi!" A sword flew from the sky. It seemed to cut the space in half, leaving a clear mark in the air. Wherever the sword light passed, the mountains trembled and the earth trembled. Zichen felt the threat behind him. He wanted to turn around and block it. At this moment, another arrow came from the front, and it was even faster. Zichen thought for a while and decided to block the arrow first, then the sword. But just as he was about to block the arrow light with all his strength, the sword Qi behind him suddenly accelerated and approached at an unimaginable speed. Whoosh! A long river appeared behind Zichen, as if it was a river of blood from hell, appearing out of nowhere. It was Shueshang. She had been following Zichen, and she chose this moment to attack. Whoosh! The long river was split in half. The sword Qi pierced the cloak, and Zichen heard a cry of surprise. "Shueshang!" Zichen shouted and shook off the arrow light. He turned around to take a look. There was a hole in his cloak, and blood was seeping out of it. "Hee, let's see how many more strikes you can block." King Giching glanced to his side and said, "Jerry Gus, let's surround Zichen from 3 sides and work together with the extra-legal demon." "All right." The two of them nodded and took out their weapons as well. These were all left behind by Gushan, and one of them also had a black wristband. Surrounded from 3 sides, Zichen could only rush towards the extra-legal demon in front of him. He was not calm at the moment, so he could not use the art of controlling thunder to intimidate them. The extra-legal demon was very experienced and kept retreating. During this time, one arrow after another flew through the air. Zichen's black peak was sent flying again and again. On the back of his cloak, there were already 3 bloody wounds. Shua! He put away his cloak. If this continued, Shueshang would not be able to hold on. Zichen, who had removed his cloak, moved forward rapidly. His eyes were fixed on the extra-legal demon. If not for the other party's deliberate obstruction, he would not be in such a sorry state. Right now, he had to kill the other party. Putting away his black peak, Zichen held the flowing knife tightly and displayed his fastest speed. The other party was retreating, and his speed was slower than Zichen's. As the arrows approached, Zichen did not dodge. He used the Sword of Thunder to destroy them. He could not use this kind of attack many times, so he had to hurry. The distance between the two parties was getting closer and closer. At this moment, it was less than 10,000 feet. In this range, the Sword of Thunder was invincible. Unfortunately, without the protection of the extra-legal demon, Zichen did not dare to act rashly. 9,000 feet. 8,000 feet. 7,000 feet. Seeing that there was only 5,000 feet left, Zichen's eyes flashed with killing intent. First, it was the Sword of Thunder, which shot towards the other party like a bolt of lightning. Next, it was the mountain chopping technique, which was Zichen's best move. The black mountain fell from above, carrying with it a vast aura. The world suddenly lit up, and a terrifying aura surged. Just as Zichen was using his full strength, the 3 people behind him did not stop attacking. Zichen wanted to kill the extra-legal demon, and they wanted to kill Zichen. Blood splattered in the sky. The powerful aura was constantly shaking, and space was crazily distorting. The extra-legal demon fled in another direction. He was injured, and after all, his weapon did not have the extra-legal demon's power. Therefore, Zichen could not kill him. Zichen did not dare to stop. He quickly moved forward, leaving behind a trail of blood. Behind him, Giching King was laughing loudly. A crystal ball floated above his head. Zichin, you look quite cute when you are running away. Next, I will let everyone see how the famous you, in front of our Gushan Jie, is unable to withstand a single blow, and is in such a sorry state. Zichin was seriously injured, but the three of them did not pursue him. It was not that they wanted to let Zichin live, but that they were too deep in. If they continued to pursue, they would be in great danger. What do we do now? Let him escape. Gichin King turned to look at Gichin King. Gichin King said indifferently. So what if he escapes? Are you still worried that he will come back? The two of them nodded and smiled. Gichin King said, Indeed, as long as he dares to come out, we can kill him. Now that they were here, they were no longer afraid of Zichin. Gas glanced at the bracers on his body and sighed. This is the paradise for us to live in. Our race is invincible here. Master is wise. Gichin King snorted. Gichin King, your vision is still too low. What is this? When the Honorable King obtains the title of number 1, it will be time for us to unify the 4 realms. At that time, all the living beings in the world will be at our feet. Gichin King waved his hand and took back the crystal ball. I wonder how those demons will react when they see the contents of the crystal ball. The three of them turned back. As for Zichin, he kept running forward, not daring to stop. But when he sensed that no one was chasing him, he immediately landed on the ground. Between the mountains, Zichin wiped away all the bloodstains. He found a secret place and hid himself underground. It had been a long time since he was so miserable. After entering the underground, Zichin immediately took out a portion of extra-legal energy and began to condense it. The fact that the three of them did not chase after him was somewhat out of his expectations, but there was a reason behind it. Ever since he entered this area, Zichin had always felt a strong sense of crisis, so he did not dare to waste a single second. Fortunately, he had a lot of extra-legal energy in his body, so he did not need to hunt anymore. Shuaishan was in a worse state than him, but her life was not in danger. She was currently using extra-legal energy to recover. Chapter 4870. Where there are people, there will be conflicts. Where there are conflicts, there will be conflicts. In this temporary trial realm, everyone was very careful in the early stages to protect themselves. But after slowly getting used to it, people's advantages were revealed. The king from Gashanjia created a stable space and provided it to some of the weaker demons, so he used it to establish his first faction. The crystal ball that King Giching brought back was replicated here, and almost everyone had one. Zichin was very famous, even among the demons. His pitiful escape made many people feel sad. Of course, for those who had grudges with him, such as the wolf tribe, they clapped and cheered. The king's goal was simple: to unify the trial realm and become the number 1 person under everyone's vote. Gashan became the number 1 person in the past by fighting, but the king did not plan to walk this path, or rather, he did not want to walk this path for the time being. He wanted to buy people's hearts, and when he became the number 1 person, all the resources in the world would belong to him, then it would not be too late to slowly become stronger. Other than the king, the second faction was quickly born, and it was also a faction from Gashanjia. It was Meiji and the others, but compared to the king's faction, they had very few people, only a few insiders and a monster refining king. When the monster refining king heard about Zichin, he did not believe it at first. How could the great Lord Zichin lose? But after seeing the Lord Zichin in the crystal ball, he became silent, and began to worry for Zichin. It had to be said that the appearance of these people from Gashanjia had completely disrupted the situation of the demons in this world. If Gashan could see this scene, who knows if he would still leave those things behind. The king continued to ask people to search for Zichin, and at the same time issued a reward. Anyone who could provide accurate information about Zichin would be rewarded with a god's chosen skill. The reason why King Giching could easily deal with the 8-headed demons, besides the weapon he left behind, was mainly because he cultivated a god's chosen skill. Above the mountains, an extra-legal demon flew through the air, wanting to go far away. During this time, he looked down. The trees were lush, and there was nothing unusual. However, just as he raised his head to look into the distance, a beam of light flew from below like a bolt of lightning, heading straight for the extra-legal demon. Such a change made the extra-legal demon's expression change abruptly. Naturally, a protective barrier appeared around him. Puff! However, this ray of light was extraordinarily powerful. It instantly pierced through his defenses and pierced into his body. A bloody wound appeared on the head of the extra-legal demon, but he did not die immediately. Instead, he jumped up and fled in fear. At this moment, another saber beam flew out from the ground, and a black mountain peak appeared in the sky. Boom! The black peak landed first on the extra-legal demon, causing his body to fall. Then, the saber light approached and cut open his body. After emerging from the ground, Zichen quickly collected the corpse. After using his energy to erase all traces, he dived back into the ground. During this period of time, he didn't go out and just hunted here. That was because he was waiting for rabbits by a tree stump. Whether or not he got any results depended entirely on luck. He knew nothing about what was going on outside, nor did he have the time to care about it. Just healing his wounds took him a long time. The number of points on his token had already reached 18, but he had never exchanged for it. Compared to before, his strength had increased a lot. Thus, he increasingly felt that the level of his weapons was not enough. The flowing saber and black peak were still okay. After all, they were left behind by Gushan. Back then, he used a lot of materials and nurtured them for many years. However, the Thunder Sword was created by himself. Although the materials were not bad, compared to the flowing saber and black peak, they were still lacking. Therefore, Zichen needed a weapon that could complement the Thunder Sword. After hiding himself again, Zichen hesitated for a long time before taking out his token. Injecting his soul remembrance into it, Zichen entered the exchange space. This time, he didn't see anything. Instead, he saw a lot of God's chosen skills and some incomplete protective equipment. For example, a single wrist guard, an earring, a bracelet, etc. The prices varied, but most of them were below 20. Many of the things he saw last time were no longer visible. According to Zichen's estimation, with only 18 points, he could only see things below 20. His eyes wandered around the few things and soon saw a small dagger-like sword. It was black in color. Zichen walked forward and saw the description. It was a broken sword, God's chosen rank, and the exchange price was as high as 20 points. The items beside it were all trial rank. Zichen didn't understand the difference between the two. Last time, he didn't pay much attention and hastily looked at the points. Now, he was a bit confused. But looking at the price, the Heaven's Chosen grade should be higher than the trial grade. Moreover, among these items, this was the only Heaven's Chosen grade item, and it was a broken sword. If it was in its complete state, perhaps the points would double. This broken sword was very suitable for him. Unfortunately, he was still 2 points short. Thus, Zichen exited again. Next, he needed to get 2 points. After re-injecting energy into the 3 weapons and increasing his fighting strength, Zichen left the underground and stepped on the path of searching for extra-legal demons. He didn't dare to go too deep and even turn back a little. At this time, he noticed 2 extra-legal demons walking together. Normally, when he saw these two, he would turn and leave. However, today was different. He was still 2 points short. These two were very suitable. Without hesitation, Zichen rushed forward. In a 1-against-2 situation, Zichen used his extreme speed to deal with 1 extra-legal demon. After a series of attacks, he successfully killed one of them. And because he was too eager to kill the enemy, he was hit by a blade. There was residual extra-legal energy in the wound, and blood flowed freely. He had 19 points, 1 more to go. Zichen held his blade and attacked the second extra-legal demon. At this time, there was still about half of the energy left in the 3 weapons. Zichen was very confident. Black Peak took the lead with a terrifying aura. Zichen held his flowing blade and was on guard. The Thunder Sword was waiting for an opportunity to kill. Right now, the power around him had completely changed. Although it was still the original power of thunder, his aura was much stronger than when he first came here. His strength and speed had greatly improved. Whoosh! Under Zichen's strong attacks, this extra-legal demon had already started to retreat. Unexpectedly, at this time, the annoying arrow came again. Feeling the danger, Zichen reflexively withdrew Black Peak and blocked the arrow. Zichen took the opportunity to quickly approach the extra-legal demon and chop down with his blade. The extra-legal demon also held a long blade and fought with Zichen in the air. Bang! The extra-legal demon's energy long blade collapsed, and he quickly retreated. At this time, the hidden Thunder Sword launched a surprise attack and sank into the extra-legal demon's mind. The residual extra-legal energy in it destroyed the extra-legal demon's vitality. On the token, there was another number. He had enough points. Chapter 4871. Seeing the number on the screen, Zichen did not hesitate. The most important thing in this world was to exchange for items. Whoosh! He disappeared into thin air. An arrow pierced through the air, but it missed. The extra-legal demon in the distance seemed to be very surprised. This exchange space could be used as a temporary shelter. Zichen was well aware of this. The white-robed old man had even specifically mentioned this to him before. However, it was only temporary because the next time he appeared, he would still be in the same place. This world was created by the two old men and the rules were also set by them. Of course, they would not lie to Zichen. Zichen appeared here and had enough points. It was time to exchange for items. At this moment, a laugh sounded. I have indeed met you, King Giching. The other party walked over and looked at Zichen mockingly. Little Zichen, you are now a big celebrity. Zichen glanced at the other party. Under the rules, fighting was prohibited, which was why King Giching dared to be so arrogant. You are here to exchange for items? King Giching looked at him. Of course. Zichen nodded. What do you want? King Giching asked. Is it convenient to say? Zichen pointed at the broken sword beside him. Of course it is convenient. It is very close to you. It? King Giching laughed. What a coincidence. I am also here to exchange for it. I have been looking at it for a long time before I decided to buy it. I have to say, you and I are both people with good taste. Zichen looked at King Giching with a smile. Is that so? What a coincidence. Of course. King Giching laughed and reached for the broken sword. This meant that he wanted to exchange for it. Zichen looked at him with a smile. His expression did not change much. Just as King Giching was about to touch the broken sword, he suddenly stopped and turned to look at Zichen. He said sarcastically, Do you think I am stupid? You are here to escape, not to exchange for items. Zichen shrugged and said helplessly, I did not expect you to see through me after hiding so deeply. Ha ha! King Giching looked into Zichen's eyes and said, I'm guessing that you are now under the protection of the extra-legal demons. Don't say that I didn't warn you. The extra-legal demons are extremely intelligent. They can also call their friends. The longer you stay here, the more disadvantageous it will be for you. Maybe by the time you get out, you will already be surrounded by a group of extra-legal demons. They will immediately hack you to death. Thank you for your reminder. I'll remember it. Zichen glanced at him from the corner of his eye. King Giching pretended not to see it and continued to ask. Last time when we were chasing you, how long did you run before you stopped? Quite a long time, until I didn't dare to run anymore. I only stopped when I realized that you weren't following me. The two of them were clearly mortal enemies, yet they were actually chatting like old friends who had not seen each other for many years. Zichen glanced around from time to time. King Giching suddenly slapped his forehead. Ah, look at my memory. This time, I came here to exchange for something, so I started chatting. You see, I just want this. As he spoke, King Giching decisively exchanged for a bracelet that was worth 18 points. Zichen's expression changed slightly. What do you mean by this? I'm exchanging for something. Look, I don't even have any points left. King Giching raised the token in his hand. In this extremely short period of time, 2 more people appeared. Without saying a word, they quickly took away the 4 defensive items. They were the 2 kings who had chased after him, Jerry and Gus. Zichen's expression turned ugly. "What do you mean by this?" King Giching sneered. "Zichen, do you really think that we are fools? You are not only here to escape, but also to exchange for something. I guess that your first goal should be that bracelet, right? Although it is only at the trial level, as long as you can get it, you will be able to survive in a crisis." Looking at Zichen's ugly expression, King Giching continued. "Last time, you ran into a big trouble in the depths. Now that you are in a desperate situation, you have no choice but to come here, right? Unfortunately, your luck is too bad. You met me, so you have no choice but to jest with me here. Do you think that I don't know what you are thinking?" King Giching's eyes became extremely cold. "Let me tell you, I want to cut off all your hopes," Zichen calmly said. "So, you bought all these defensive items?" "Of course. As long as you die, no matter who killed you, we will be very happy," King Giching said. "Don't worry, we are still looking for you. Maybe we will have a chance to collect your corpse. If I am here to exchange for something, why didn't I exchange before? Why did I have to talk to you?" Zichen asked. "You are afraid that I will take away what you want, or you don't have enough points, so you are looking for something suitable. But now it seems that there is nothing particularly suitable, haha." King Giching was very proud, and so were the 2 kings beside him. Zichen nodded. "It seems that your IQ is really high. You guessed half of it right. I am indeed escaping to exchange for something, but I don't want to exchange for those things. I want to exchange for this." As Zichen spoke, he reached out and grabbed the broken sword. It turned out that when they were talking, he had quietly approached the broken sword. The next moment, the broken sword was in his hand, and the points disappeared. The smiles on the faces of the 3 kings froze. Zichen ignored the 3 of them and sat down cross-legged on the ground to refine the broken sword. "Giching, what is going on?" King Giching looked at him. After being stunned for a moment, Giching quickly recovered. He smiled coldly and said, "Don't you know how cunning he is? We have already seen through his scheme. He must be flustered and exasperated, so he deliberately used this broken sword energy on us." Giching said indifferently, "Weapons? Do you think that he has few weapons? Is the flowing broken sword not enough?" Hearing this, the 2 of them nodded. What he said made sense. As such, when they looked at Zichen again, it seemed that he was just putting on an act. For a moment, smiles reappeared on the faces of the 3 kings. Zichen did not know which expression or action of his had caused King Giching to misunderstand, but he was too lazy to explain. King Giching was right about one thing. The extra-legal demons were indeed very intelligent. If they delayed any longer, they might really encounter a group of extra-legal demons guarding the surroundings. After a moment, Zichen opened his eyes. Because he had the extra-legal force, the broken sword was relatively easy to refine. He stood up and looked at the 3 of them, saying, "Gentlemen, we will meet again someday." After saying this, Zichen disappeared. "All right, we will collect your corpse." King Giching smiled magnanimously. Zichen appeared again, and an arrow flew from afar. As expected, the enemy did not leave. However, this time, with the broken sword, Zichen was not afraid of anything. "Kill!" With a low shout, the broken sword turned into a ray of light and shot towards the arrow in the form of the Sword of Thunder. With a poof, the arrow exploded. The broken sword did not slow down at all and flew directly towards the extra-legal demon that had been fighting with Zichen many times. Poof! Chapter 4872. The broken sword turned into a stream of light and flew back. It flickered a few times beside Zichen before disappearing. With it, the power of the Thunder Sword became stronger again. Zichen flew forward. During this time, a new number appeared on the token. Putting away the corpse of the extra-legal demon, Zichen walked towards the depths. This time, he would be fearless. King Giching and the other two waited in the exchange space for a long time. In the end, Zichen did not come. They thought they would see Zichen come in again, covered in blood and with incomplete parts. Since they did not see him, he might have been killed by the extra-legal demon when he went out. This was a good thing. Although they thought so, the three of them still felt a little gloomy when they left. Zichen stood in the air and closed his eyes. He released his soul power endlessly and extended it into the distance. The originally clear sky suddenly became gloomy. Clouds gathered from all directions and gathered in this area. Zichen tried to sense within a radius of 3,000 miles. Within this range and in this state, Zichen would be able to sense even the slightest movement in the wind. An extra-legal demon appeared 3,000 miles away. Looking at the abnormality in the sky, he frowned. Then he moved forward carefully and reached a distance of 3,000 miles. The haze in the sky became heavier. Black clouds rolled and thunder rumbled. The extra-legal demon noticed Zichen from afar and quickly came forward. The sky was completely dark. Occasionally, a light would appear. The thunder was already dormant in the black clouds. The extra-legal demon had a knife in his hand. He slashed from afar. The blade was like a waterfall, coming from 1,000 miles away. Zichen, who had his eyes closed, suddenly opened them and said, "Thunder fall!" Suddenly, 2 dazzling thunderbolts appeared in the sky and lit up the dark world again. One thunderbolt shattered the blade. The second thunderbolt fell on the head of the extra-legal demon. Bathed in the thunderbolts, the demon's face was distorted. He was resisting with all his might. "Fall again!" The thunderbolts in the sky fell again. Heaven and earth lit up again. The thunderbolts fell on the extra-legal demon. When he was still 250 kilometers away from Zichen, he collapsed. He died under the lightning controlling technique. The remnant swords that were originally hidden in the surroundings flew back. This time, they were not used. Zichen dashed forward and collected the corpse. It was another spoil of war. The power of the lightning manipulation technique surprised him. It was almost as powerful as the thunder sword in the state of the broken sword. If the distance between the two parties was far enough, and the other party did not have any long-range attacks like bows and arrows, Zichen would not be afraid of being surrounded. Within the range of the lightning controlling technique, it was like a domain in the past. Once he pointed at a place, he could hit it there. Furthermore, multiple lightning bolts could appear in an instant. However, once he exited that state, Zichen's soul perception range would decrease to around 1,500 kilometers. Behind him, after refining a large amount of extra-legal energy, the cloak had completely recovered. Fortunately, it was in the form of a living being. Even if it was injured, as long as it did not die, it could recover. Compared to other weapons that were damaged to the point of being difficult to repair, it was much better. A Heaven's Chosen Grade Remnant sword greatly increased Zichen's combat strength. He had the lightning controlling technique for long-range attacks, the flowing blade and black peak for close combat, and the remnant sword for a fatal blow. He could do whatever he wanted in this relatively deep region. The points that Zichen used up began to increase once again. In the middle of a mountain range, Zichen released his soul force. Within a 500-kilometer radius, even the slightest movement of grass could be clearly detected by him. After there were no more threats, Zichen closed his eyes. An oppressive aura began to spread. The sky darkened and dark clouds covered the sky. His perception once again expanded to a radius of 3,000 kilometers. As expected, there were 2 extra-legal demons in this range. After they noticed the commotion, they came over. Thunder rumbled as Zichen used the lightning controlling technique to attack. Lightning bolts flashed in the sky one after another. After advancing for about 1,000 kilometers, the 2 extra-legal demons were killed by the lightning one after another. However, Zichen did not stop because another evil demon appeared in his range of perception. This evil demon was from Gishan. It was obvious that the other party was sent by King Gishan because only Gishan demons would follow them. The other party had heard the huge commotion earlier. Now that he was in the dark clouds, he was very vigilant. At this moment, the sky above his head suddenly lit up. Then, thunder rumbled and a bolt of lightning descended from the sky. The Gashan demon sensed the commotion and roared. Energy condensed in the air and formed a shield. Boom! The shield shattered and lightning bathed his body. The Gashan demon's expression changed drastically and he was terrified. Then, the second bolt of lightning descended and the Gashan demon's life force began to disappear. The dark clouds in the sky dispersed, and Zichen appeared beside the dead Gashan demon. His expression was extremely cold. The other party had already found this place. He believed that there would only be more evil demons coming. During this period, Zichen had to strengthen himself. Other than his powerful battle strength, Zichen was able to resolve the dangers along the way. Another reason was that he was fast enough. Therefore, Zichen had to work hard in this area. The speed of the Thunder tribe no longer had an advantage here, so Zichen had to think of another way. Of course, there was a way, but it depended on whether the points were enough. Zichen deliberately walked deeper into the area and tried to obtain more rewards. However, he did not dare to go too deep. If he was surrounded, it would not be worth it. In a day, Zichen killed 3 extra-legal demons and his points returned to the number 10. However, he was not sure if there were any speed techniques that were suitable for him. Therefore, he patiently waited for a few days. When his points returned to 20, Zichen found a relatively safe place and entered the exchange space again. This time, he did not encounter King Gashan and did not need to be careful. He could casually check the techniques that were related to speed. His gaze swept across them. Almost all of them were of the trial level, and the trial level was obviously one level lower than the chosen level. Zichen was a little hesitant. After all, 1 point was equivalent to the life of an extra-legal demon. Zichen did not want to waste it casually. Within 20 points, there were no suitable techniques. Zichen could only leave first and come back after he had accumulated enough points. When he reached 30 points, Zichen finally saw a suitable chosen-level skill, Thunder Escape. It was a speed technique that was very compatible with his strength. Moreover, it was a chosen-level skill and only required 28 points. It was slightly more expensive than other things, but Zichen did not hesitate and directly exchanged for it. The Thunder Escape technique was a ball of light. The moment Zichen held it in his hand, it directly entered his sea of consciousness. Then, Zichen saw a figure using Thunder Escape. It was as if it was shuttling through a space of lightning. Chapter 48-73. The Honored King built a city, Evil Demon City. The city was not big, but it was filled with evil demons. These evil demons were definitely loyal to the Honored King. In the city, other than the people of Gashanjia, the rest were the former Yao. Old Black and the others were here, under the protection of the Honored King. But they also needed to pay a certain amount of points, saying that it was for the maintenance of the city. King Gichin came to the exchange space. Looking at the dazzling array of goods, he said in a deep voice, "Everyone supports the Honored King. He is the number 1 person in our hearts." There was no one here, so his words were naturally without rhyme or reason. After saying it, there was no response. King Gichin changed a few places, said it more than 10 times, and finally disappeared. In the Evil Demon City, those evil demons were also saying the same thing, but there was no response. Walking back from the exchange space, King Gichin went to the Honored King's residence. The Honored King was leisurely drinking tea here. Seeing the frowning King Gichin come in, he gently raised his hand. "Don't be anxious." King Gichin sat down. "It is obvious that we are already invincible. Why don't we immediately choose the number 1 person? These days, we have been shouting everywhere. The existence of this place should have been known." The Honored King poured a cup of tea for King Gichin. This method was suggested by others, to proclaim that they were the number 1 person. Although it seemed a little silly, it might have a miraculous effect. Once there was no dispute here, under the joint recommendation of everyone, the number 1 person would naturally be the one chosen. Recently, everyone had been working hard to proclaim, but there was no response. The Honored King drank a cup of tea, put down the teacup, and said slowly, Maybe we are not united enough. What does the honored king mean? King Giching's face was filled with confusion. The honored king's finger lightly tapped on the table. Our efforts have not received any response. It should be because some people are not convinced and feel that we are not qualified. So in terms of unity, we have to work harder. Only when we achieve true unity can we convince people. King Giching fell into deep thought. Have you found Ziqin? The honored king asked. Still searching, there are some clues, but we can't be sure if it is him. That guy is too good at running. King Giching cursed. Like a fucking gopher. The honored king smiled and said, following behind him will only lead to passivity. In fact, the best way is to take the initiative. King Giching was stunned for a moment before he reacted. His friends have all run away. We are also looking for them, but it seems that they were born as one family. They are all very good at hiding. So far, we haven't found a single one. The honorable king nodded. It has indeed been hard on you all during this period of time. However, there's a saying that I'm not sure if you've heard of. It's good to have conditions, but even if you don't have conditions, you have to create them. Duke Giching's eyes lit up. I understand. Thank you for your guidance. We will do it now. Ziqin went deeper, because the exchange process was addictive. After accumulating 30 points last time, Ziqin found a lot of good things. Unfortunately, he could only exchange them for the thunder escape technique first. Now, he wanted more points, and he wanted to exchange them for more things. Just like what King Giching had said, as long as they could obtain the useful items inside, they would be truly invincible. Ziqin went on a killing spree in the depths. Once there was danger, he would use the thunder escape technique to escape. Dark clouds rolled in the sky. Ziqin's perception range had already extended to a radius of 4,000 miles. Within this range, there were a total of 5 extralegal demons. When they saw the heavens and earth shaking, they immediately ran towards the core area. Ziqin's thoughts moved. Lightning fell from the sky and landed on the 5 extralegal demons. Before they could get close, the 5 extralegal demons were destroyed by the lightning. Ziqin withdrew his thunder manipulation technique and went to collect the spoils. At this moment, there was an abnormality in the sky. Suddenly, a ray of light appeared among the countless dark clouds. The ray of light was extremely dazzling. It was completely out of Ziqin's control. Ziqin's expression changed. He looked up at the sky. He had already withdrawn his thunder manipulation technique, but the dark clouds and light did not disperse. The pressure between heaven and earth became even more intense, and the surging lightning in the black clouds seemed to have been summoned, heading straight for the place where the light was. There seemed to be a breath of life there. Ziqin's expression changed. He was extremely vigilant. At this moment, the infinite light pierced through the darkness. All the dark clouds dissipated. A ball of spiritual light more dazzling than the sun appeared in the sky. What is this? Ziqin looked at the spiritual light. He was a little shocked. Through his perception, the spiritual light contained an extremely powerful breath. At this moment, the spiritual light suddenly flew towards Ziqin. Ziqin did not hesitate to use the thunder escape technique. His body moved through the space and appeared in another place. The spiritual light was also flickering with Ziqin. After Ziqin's body changed 3 times in a row, the spiritual light finally caught up and disappeared into Ziqin's mind. The next moment, the world in Ziqin's sea of consciousness began to roll. At the same time, a message appeared. Spirit manipulation. This was a technique that was completely different from the thunder manipulation technique. In other words, it was an advanced version of the thunder manipulation technique. The most extraordinary thing was that this spiritual light was born naturally. It was born from slaughter and belonged to the spirit of slaughter. It looked radiant and very pure. In fact, it was formed from the condensation of life. Ziqin's lightning manipulation technique had killed countless existences ever since he learned it. Not to mention those weak creatures, he had killed plenty of demon-level existences. Therefore, the spirit of slaughter was born. It also made Zichen's thunder manipulation technique another type of spirit manipulation technique. Zichen looked at the newly born spirit of slaughter. Although it was very powerful, it was in the state of soul power. It would be consumed and damaged. If it encountered a relatively powerful attack, it might be directly destroyed. Zichen stretched out his hand. With a flash of light, the spirit of slaughter appeared. With a thought from Zichen, it, which was just pure soul power, began to change into various forms. I can try to give it a layer of protection. Zichen's eyes lit up. He took out the broken sword. With a thought, the spirit of slaughter turned into the broken sword in the form of a soul. With another thought, the two broken swords overlapped with each other and began to merge. Zichen was a little nervous and worried. The merging process was faster than he had imagined. In an instant, the broken sword trembled and released a sharp aura. The surrounding space began to distort as if it was about to shatter. It was a success. But this was only the first step. Zichen nervously ordered again. With a swoosh, the spirit of slaughter left the broken sword. Without the spirit of slaughter, the broken sword returned to normal. It works. It's not restricted by the rules. Staying in the broken sword is like having an additional layer of armor. Zichen was completely relieved. The appearance of the spirit of slaughter was a complete surprise. At this moment, an extralegal demon followed the previous movement and appeared in Zichen's perception. Zichen glanced at the broken sword. The trembling broken sword was like a stream of light. It flew thousands of miles away and cut off the extralegal demon's head. The power of spirit manipulation. The broken sword flew back. Zichen was extremely satisfied. With the spirit of slaughter, his combat strength had increased dozens of times. Chapter 4874. In the sky, an extralegal demon was running for his life. His eyes were filled with fear as he looked back from time to time. The surroundings were very quiet. There was nothing behind him, but it was still difficult to suppress the fear in his heart. Whoosh! When he looked back for the third time, a black light flew from afar. His reaction was not slow. He immediately activated his energy, but it was useless. The black light sank into his glabella. It was a short sword, as black as ink. After piercing through his glabella, it turned into a stream of light and returned. A moment later, a light shadow approached. It was Zichen in his cloak. He waved his hand and put away the corpse of the extralegal demon. At the same time, the number on the trial taker's token had reached 49. This was only the result of 3 days. Zichen was very confident that he could get more points in the future. Now, perhaps he could exchange for something that he liked. Therefore, after harvesting another life, Zichen entered the exchange space. This time, he was rich and overbearing. He was not worried about King Giching causing trouble again. Zichen did not know if it was a coincidence or not, but he really saw King Giching. Just like last time, before Zichen could greet him, King Giching took the initiative to come to Zichen's side. He said with a smile, "You're not dead yet?" Zichen replied indifferently, "You're not dead either." "Of course I'm not dead, but some people might be dying. Poor, really pitiful." King Giching smacked his lips. "You seem to be implying something." Zichen looked at him. "I wonder if you've heard of the name Main Zichen?" King Giching said mysteriously. "She's about to die." Zichen's expression changed. "What are you up to now?" King Giching hurriedly waved his hand and said, "Zichen, you've misunderstood me this time. I didn't provoke her. Main was courting death. You want to know? I'll tell you slowly. One of our demons had a conflict with another demon. It was originally a small matter, but who would have thought that the other demon would call a friend to help? Guess who this friend is?" Duke Giching clapped his hands. "What a coincidence, it's Main. So when we saw the two of them, we could only try to persuade them. Who knew that Main wouldn't listen and even wanted to use her family's influence to suppress them? Of course, they wouldn't listen. But who would have thought that when they actually fought, the two of them were unable to defeat one of them. One of them was killed on the spot, and Mei-yin was captured. King Giching shook his head and said regretfully, "Actually, this is a very small matter. If I had known, with my relationship with Mei-yin, I would definitely have let it go. Who would have thought that our honorable king would find out about this? Think about it, as a dignified honorable king, don't you want face? That's why the honored king detained Mei-yin. Actually, it was a small matter. As long as Mei-yin gave in and Meiji came to apologize, what could not be resolved? After all, they have been neighbors for countless years." Zichen listened quietly to Duke Giching's nonsense, the sarcasm in his eyes growing. But who would have thought that this mother and daughter pair would have the same temper? They refused to give in and a small matter became a big matter. Duke Giching shook his head regretfully. "See, the honorable king gave the order to execute Mei-yin in the evil demon city. Don't you think it's a pity?" Zichen nodded and said, "It's a pity. In order to kill me, you guys really put in a lot of effort and took a lot of detours. This Mei-yin is really unlucky. If I hadn't come here today, Mei-yin might have been able to hold on." Duke Giching gave Zichen a you-know-what-I-mean look. "I've been waiting for you for many days, unless you didn't come here at all. Since you're here, Mei-yin's life can count down." Zichen said, "So, you guys are willing to offend Meiji to get rid of me?" Duke Giching gave a thumbs up. "Zichen, you're really smart. You guessed it right. However, it's not like offending Meiji. After all, our neighbors have been unreliable for so many years. The honorable king means to get rid of as many as possible. What if I know and still don't go? It's very simple. Torture Mei-yin every day until it dies." Duke Giching looked at Zichen. "When it comes to torturing people, you should be the most familiar with our methods, right? If Mei-yin dies, we'll find someone else. There must be someone you care about here, right?" Zichen nodded. "Your analysis is very good. So, when I get there, I'll kill you first." Duke Giching immediately clapped his hands. "Welcome, welcome, a warm welcome. Address? Evil Demon City. It's a city we established ourselves. Other than some disobedient demons, all the other demons live there. Xiaohei, you've seen them before. Their faction of demons all live there. I've received the message. You can scram now." "Understood. Then this little one will respectfully welcome the Lord's death." Duke Giching smiled and cupped his fists at Zichen. He was very pleased with himself. Scram! Zichen's eyes turned cold. The grudge between him and the Honorable King's faction had long been irreconcilable. There was no need to hide it. There were no more conspiracies. This time, the other party had set up such a situation to determine one's life and death. And this life and death might be related to the direction of the first person. After Duke Giching left, Zichen looked around. Since he was going to that city, he needed to exchange for something that could save his life. Not long after Zichen received the news, the same news spread from the trial realm. In addition to adding false details, they also had to say that Zichen would be attending the ceremony as well. The Honorable King's move was very simple. It was to gather all the demons, obedient and disobedient, for a final battle. The one who survived would naturally be the first person. After Meow Meow heard the news, she went to find Scarlet Ape and the others without hesitation. They naturally had ways to contact each other. After a short discussion, they felt that the news was very likely to be true. Because the message clearly stated that everyone would be there. Perhaps Zichen also thought that everyone would go and take a look, so no one hesitated. It was almost the appointed time. Everyone stepped on the road ahead. Back then, the 8 heads only had their souls left. However, after a long period of recovery, they had reformed their physical bodies and their combat strength had returned to its peak. In the evil demon city, the human form of Mei-yin was chained to 2 large stone pillars. On both sides of her were 2 kings, guarding her like guards. On this day, none of the demons went out. They had to stay here to watch the ceremony. The Honorable King would personally behead Mei-yin. There were no ambushes along the way. Meow Meow and the others arrived safely. They did not know Mei-yin, but this was no longer a simple personal grudge. Chapter 4875. All the evil demons had gathered at the evil demon city. Maine was chained to a stone pillar. She had obviously been abused, but her eyes kept searching the crowd. The four existences who had protected Gashan Jiet in the past were all here. They watched the scene from afar. Beside the two of them were 5 evil demons. An evil demon of the rat race said worriedly, "What should we do now?" They wanted to save Mayeen, but they were outnumbered and their battle prowess was too strong. They had tried many times to save her, but to no avail. In the end, Meiji persuaded them to give up and wait for Zichen to come. Zichen's friends stood in another place, watching from afar. They did not act rashly. The evil demons that went out to hunt had all returned. The future of the world would depend on how it ended this time. Duke Giching and the others appeared. Each of them was equipped with equipment. This was the reason why they were so powerful. "Honored King, please." All the evil demons from the evil demon city turned around and cupped their fists respectfully. The honored king walked out. He was wearing a purple gold robe, embroidered with true dragons. He looked like an emperor of the human world. "Greetings, honored king!" Hearing those loud voices, the High King waved at everyone, which could be considered as a greeting. "The longer you live, the more embarrassing you become." Ba Shou looked at Old Hay and the others who were bowing in the crowd. Disdain flashed in his eyes. They were people of the same generation as Gashan, but now they were bowing to Gashan's servants. How embarrassing! Even when Gashan was here, they had not been treated like this. The honored king stood on the platform and glanced at Meiji and the others. Meiji did not move. She looked coldly at the honored king. They were old rivals. The honored king smiled and glanced at Maine. Seeing this, the others immediately bowed to the honored king. It was just a bow. They would not lose anything. It was better than Maine being humiliated in front of everyone. Meiji still did not move. The honored king looked at Miao Miao and the others. "Actually, I should call you seniors." Ba Shou snorted. "Wrong. You should call us master because we are brothers with Gashan. You were raised by Gashan, so you call us Master Gashan. Of course, you have to call us that." The smile on the revered king's face did not diminish, and his mood was not affected in the slightest. On the other hand, King Giching was enraged. He looked at Ba Shou and said, "You bastard, I didn't stab you to death back then, did I? You dare to come here and act like a big shot?" A hint of anger flashed in the 8-headed beast's eyes, but when he saw the sword in the other party's hand, he held himself back and laughed. "So what? I am still your master. Come, little darling, come quickly. Call me master, and master will find you some candy to eat. Your King courting death." King Giching was immediately enraged because he had the absolute combat strength. He felt extremely humiliated, so he struck out with his sword. "Why would master be afraid of you?" The 8-headed man was not afraid at all. Half a shield appeared in his hand. The shield shone brightly and enlarged in front of him, blocking the sword chi. Boom! Powerful shockwaves spread out in all directions. Ba Shou gripped his shield tightly and said sarcastically, "You're so weak, yet you dare to be so arrogant in front of master?" King Giching was enraged and was about to step forward when the honored king extended his hand to stop him. "Since you're here, show yourself. We haven't seen each other for so long, we can be considered old friends, right?" Everyone turned around and saw a person appear out of thin air. It was Zichen. He was wearing a cloak and flew through the air. All of Mei Yin's energy was sealed, so she could only look at Zichen and whimper. "Young master." Miao Miao and the rest went up to welcome him. At this moment, they were all on the same side. Zichen came closer and nodded at Miao Miao and the rest. He then continued forward, with Miao Miao and the rest following behind him. When he arrived in front of Meiji and the rest, he paused for a moment. Miao Miao and the rest understood what Zichen meant and landed on the ground. They were going to join forces. Zichen took a step forward and stood in the air, looking at the honored king from afar. The honored king was still as indifferent as before, and even had a hint of carefreeness. Zichen knew that this was just a facade. The honored king's ruthless methods were all hidden in the dark. At the very least, the current situation was caused by the honored king. Long time no see. I heard that you killed Mr. back then? The honored king was still smiling. You can say so. Zichen looked at the honored king, who was talking about Lei Zhenke. Why did you lure me here? Do you even need to ask? Of course, it's to kill you. King Giching raised the sword in his hand and showed it off to Zichen. All right. Zichen nodded as a thought flashed through his mind. Whoosh! A ray of light shot towards him. Such an unexpected attack caused King Giching's expression to change drastically. Swoosh! The sword in his hand was like a decoration, unable to do anything. However, there was a protective mirror in front of him that released a ray of light. Clang! A clanging sound was heard as the broken sword was blocked by the heart protection mirror. However, the powerful force of the broken sword still forced Lord Giching to retreat. Let's see how many times you can block it. Zichen stood on the spot with killing intent flickering in his eyes. The broken sword flew towards King Giching again. King Giching slashed with his sword, but his speed was not as fast as the broken sword. When his sword missed, he could only continue to defend. Boom! The broken sword failed again. Zichen's expression did not change as the third attack was launched. Seeing this scene, the honored king shook his head and said, What's the point of this? You can't kill him. Zichen did not speak as the broken sword's fifth attack flew out. The honored king continued, Actually, I didn't want to fight when I gathered all of you here. Isn't it good for all of us to live in peace in this world? Zichen sneered. Let Main go first, then we can talk about peace. The sixth attack flew out, and King Giching was already pushed back a few miles. However, he still could not do anything to the broken sword. In such a short distance, the broken sword was unstoppable. The honored king sighed and said, I don't want to capture Main to threaten all of you. However, this is a special situation. Only in this way can everyone sit down and have a good discussion. The honored king pointed around. Look, there are so many demons here. If everyone wants to fight, how long will it take? How many years will it take for the first person to emerge? This is just a small matter. It's just a matter of a sentence. Zichen sneered. A sentence will make you the first person? King Giching was attacked for the 9th time. The first person is just a title. It's the same no matter who comes. Before Zichen could follow up, the honored king continued. However, your killing intent is too strong. If I give you the first person, this world will be filled with killing. Therefore, I can only sacrifice myself to achieve the greater good. You may have misunderstood me, but my ultimate goal is for the peace of the world. My methods may be improper, but I have no choice. The honored king finally said. On the matter of the first person, Zichen only needs you to nod. King Giching was attacked for the 12th time. It's useless. If we continue fighting like this, we won't be able to determine a winner even if we fight for decades. With the god's chosen weapon, we are invincible. Is that so? Zichen's lips suddenly curled into a cold smile. The broken sword's 13th attack had arrived. Chapter 48-76. The sword light pierced through King Giching's defense and his body before turning into a ray of light and disappearing beside Zichen. Everyone was looking at King Giching with a different expression on their faces. The honored king frowned and his expression was no longer as calm as before. He did not expect Zichen to do this. King Giching's body fell to the ground and his life was drained away. He was dead. The crowd was in an uproar. In this world, having a defensive weapon meant that one was immortal. King Giching was so arrogant because of this reason. After the uproar, the crowd suddenly fell silent. The honored king had just said that this battle would last for at least a few decades and there would be no winner. But now, it was a matter of life and death. This meant that even with a defensive weapon, one's life would still be in danger. Zichen looked at the honored king. Sorry, I didn't pay much attention. What did you say? He was obviously trying to embarrass the honored king. The honored king's eyes flashed. You shouldn't have done that. Zichen smiled. Why don't we have another one? He looked around as if he was looking for a target. Everyone's heart tightened. They had all seen Zichen's battle strength. At such a close distance, he was a live target. The honored king would not let this happen. He stepped forward and came to Mei Yin's side. Actually, we can still sit down and talk. Zichen took a few steps forward and closed the distance between them. Okay, give me the first person and I will make the world peaceful. The honored king said indifferently. You know that I don't trust you. Plus, you just started a massacre. With such a strong killing intent, I don't feel safe leaving the world to you. But I am different. Ever since I became the honored king, I have not killed a single person because I believe in peace. Bull**T. Zichen's eyes were filled with anger. You have not killed anyone, but how many people have died because of you? How many people did you indirectly kill in Gashan boundary? Now you are using Mei Yin to threaten us and say that you have not killed anyone. Do you have any shame? The honorable king shook his head. You're angry just because of this? You don't even have this bit of shrewdness. Zichen, you disappoint me. If being shameless is called being shrewd, then I'd rather not. Zichen pointed at the honorable king, killing intent flashing in his eyes. Don't you want to be number one in the world? Then you should ask the sword in my hand. Alright, we can discuss everything later, alright? A sharp claw flew out from behind the High King and wrapped around Mei Yin's neck, threatening to take her life at any moment. You can continue. The honored king looked at Zichen and smiled. I'm very curious to know what you want to say. Zichen shook his head. I've already said what I want to say. The respectable king laughed out loud. Look, this is your weakness. As long as you have friends living in this world, how can you fight me? The sharp claw exerted some force and immediately pierced Mei Yin's skin. Today, I can use her to threaten you. Next time, I can use others to threaten you until there is no one in this world that you care about. Yes, you're right. Zichen quickly nodded. Mei Yin's life was in the other party's hands. The honorable king laughed mockingly. Then who is the number one? Whoever you say. At this moment, Zichen suddenly became very easy to talk to. You can make the arrangements as you see fit. Let her go first, then you have the final say. The honorable king's eyes turned cold. Don't play dumb in front of me. Say it yourself, say it to everyone, say it to the world, and say it to the person in charge of the trial. Otherwise, she'll die. All right. Zichen nodded and said, I admit that you are the number one. I can't win against you and I won't fight with you. The honorable king snorted coldly, satisfied. Mei Yin looked at Zichen with tears in her eyes. Was he giving up just like that? How could her life be more important than the number one person? Mei Yin was not stupid. She knew that once the honorable king became the number one person, he would kill everyone immediately. And them. The honorable king looked at Meow Meow and the others. They have to admit it too. Zichen frowned. You're going too far. I can only control myself. How can I control them? Then collect their corpses. The honorable king's eyes were filled with killing intent. For world peace, I'm willing to break my vow to kill. I admit that you are the number one person. Meow Meow suddenly spoke. All right, your grandfather also admits you. Ba Shou also said. Cheong Qi and Bone Eagle also spoke. Qi Yan also expressed his opinion. Han Nu and Chung Ho also expressed their willingness to let the honorable king become the number one person. Finally, the honorable king looked at Meiji. Look at Zichen. He can barely be considered a friend, but he's already doing this. Look at the rest of you. The gap between you is really huge. Lao Shu and the others quickly expressed their opinions. The number one person was too far away. They did not have high hopes before. Now, saving Mei Yin was the key. Everyone expressed their opinions. Only Meiji was left. She looked at her daughter. She did not speak, but her eyes became resolute. Zichen saw this and immediately said, It's just admitting that others are strong. It's not difficult. It's just like admitting that others are outstanding. At least in terms of shamelessness and shamelessness, we can't even compare to the honorable king. Meiji glanced at Zichen. Zichen nodded at her. All right. Meiji sighed. You are the number one person. The honorable king laughed. He swept his gaze across all the demons. Those who had already submitted to the honorable king shouted in unison. Greetings, number one person. His aura was like a rainbow. Zichen looked at the honorable king. All right, number one person. Hurry up and release them. We have to go back. The honorable king stopped smiling. Where's the thing? Zichen asked. What thing? Where's the reward for being number one? The honorable king looked up at the sky. Everyone has acknowledged my identity. Where's my reward for being number one? His voice spread out, shaking the heavens and earth. No one responded. I am the strongest. Everyone has personally acknowledged it. There was still no response. The two old men did not seem to hear him. The honorable king looked at Zichen, his eyes gradually turning cold. Are you playing with me? Zichen looked at the honorable king, who seemed to have lost control. You made such a big commotion and made everyone play house with you. You even used the lives of others to threaten them. This is a game you created. You are the master of the game. Why didn't you become number one? Shouldn't you ask yourself? Or should I say, the trial supervisor didn't want to play with you? The honorable king pointed at Zichen. You, it must be you. It must be because you were unwilling that I couldn't get the reward for being number one. Zichen shook his head and said, You really aren't human. Your own cheating didn't work, and you still blame others. The honorable king's expression turned crazy. Since you admit it, then I will kill all of you. Zichen gave a strange smile. That's what I meant. Bang! Chapter 48-77. The sudden appearance of this powerful aura forced the honorable king to retreat. At this moment, Zichen's broken sword suddenly moved, directly cutting the iron lock at close range. A demon appeared out of thin air, bringing Mei-yin to Zichen. This demon was the monster Refining King. Meow Meow and the rest recognized the monster Refining King. The 8 heads were surprised. Refining King, you didn't die? The monster Refining King smiled. I almost died back then. Fortunately, I was lucky enough to survive until now. Meiji and the rest flew forward. Everyone was now standing on the same side. So what? We were meant to fight. The honorable king's eyes turned cold. Since the first person was chosen by fighting, then today you will die. Chiyo! Before the honorable king could finish, Zichen attacked. The broken sword was like a ray of light, landing on the honorable king's body. At such a close range, even the honorable king couldn't dodge. Clang! With a clang, the honorable king flew nearly 100 feet away. A set of armor appeared on his body, and he held a golden spear in his hand. He smiled faintly. Sneak attacking before you finish speaking. Zichen, it seems like this is all you have left. Zichen kept the broken sword, and his expression turned serious. He had used the massacre spirit before, but it didn't work. It would be impossible to kill the honorable king now. Moreover, he could clearly sense that the honorable king's armor was much stronger than King Giching's heart protection mirror. Previously, the heart protection mirror was broken by the broken sword attacking the same spot several times before the massacre spirit finally broke through. However, this battle had to be fought. Zichen's eyes swept across the surroundings. Those who participate in the battle stay. Those who watch, leave. Obviously, Zichen wanted to disperse the honorable king's forces. Some demons hesitated. The current situation wasn't clear, and it wasn't wise to leave rashly. Zichen's eyes flashed coldly, and the broken sword appeared again, heading towards the Giching Mountain demons. At this point, there was no need to hide his strength. Therefore, with the massacre spirit, 3 Giching Mountain demons died. The demons who were hesitating turned and ran away. Facing Zichen's methods, no one could stop him. Idiot, hey, are you waiting to die? When Ba Shou saw that Lao He and the others did not move, he immediately said with a cold face, "You are really an idiot. At this time, you don't know how to save your own life first?" Zichen obviously wouldn't show any mercy. Killing one more evil demon at this time meant one less opponent in the following life and death battles. The people on his side would have an additional chance of survival. "Go!" Without hesitation, Old Black and the other demons turned and left. Soon, only Zichen and the revered king were left in the city. The honorable king faintly smiled and said, "That's good. Life and death will be decided in this battle." With that said, the High Reverend King thrust his spear forward. The spear trembled as the High Reverend King became one with his spear, charging towards Zichen. The flowing break blade appeared in Zichen's hand, and he slashed forward. Accompanied by a powerful shockwave, Zichen's body was sent flying backwards. Chi! During this period of time, Broken Sword had taken the life of another Mountain demon. "Kill!" The High Reverend King gave the order indifferently. The kings who could no longer wait charged forward. They all had weapons in their hands and one or more protective gear on their bodies. "Everyone, don't die!" The 8 heads revealed their true forms, and with their enormous bodies, they faced off against the king. Qi Yan rushed forward and punched out. The sky trembled. His fist carried an oppressive force, and sent a King Jin flying. "Be careful!" Chung Ho glanced at Frost Maiden and rushed forward. He had a pair of boxing gloves on his fists. This was the trial weapon he had exchanged for. The surrounding air condensed like ice crystals. A sword light that was approaching Frost Maiden was blocked by the ice crystals. Boom! The ice crystals shattered, and Frost Maiden flew backwards, avoiding the attack. The next moment, a sword of ice appeared in her hand. It was also a trial-level weapon. Meow Meow walked forward, and rays of light bloomed from her body, enveloping the space in front of her and blocking the path of a king. The Bone Eagle let out a cry, grabbed the weapon of a demon, and left. Xiongqi followed closely behind and left with the demon. There were so many demons here that a small city like this couldn't accommodate such a large-scale battle. When everyone was choosing their targets, they all looked for existences with weapons and protection. As for those without protection, they were all left to Zichen. While Zichen was fighting with the High Reverend King, Broken Sword was like a ghost, reaping the lives of the Mountain demons. The weapon left behind by Mountain could at most protect the 18 kings. It was impossible for it to protect everyone. "Good boy, you still have the time to care about other things. Let me see what other methods you have." The High Reverend King suddenly clapped his hands, and the spear immediately flew into the sky. Following that, a powerful aura was released, and the space around the spear began to distort. Buzz! A sharp aura descended from the sky. It was the sharp light of the spear that enveloped the space where Zichen was. Looking at these attacks, Zichen shook his hand, and a white jade bowl flew out. It expanded with the wind and protected him. The sharp light fell from the sky and landed on the white jade bowl, making a tinkling sound, but it could not break through the defense. This was what Zichen had exchanged before coming, and it was worth dozens of points. The only advantage of these things was that they could be used without needing a long time to refine. All the attacks were blocked, and Zichen reaped another life. Everything was as the High Reverend King had said. With the defense, it was difficult for both sides to fight to the death. Of course, King Guqing was an exception. The only people that Zichen could kill now were those who did not have any protection. In the end, there was only Zichen and the High Reverend King left. The others had either run away or died. In this way, Zichen's broken sword could only land on the High Reverend King. But even with the massacre spirit, Zichen could not break through the High Reverend King's defense. So, in this battle, the two of them really had to fight endlessly until one of them died of exhaustion. But at this level, it was difficult to be exhausted. Therefore, this battle was likely to last for several years or even several decades. It was the same in several other places. The battle continued with all kinds of powerful attacks and killing methods. But it was difficult to determine life and death. Before coming, Meow Meow and the rest had prepared their defense. They did not want to kill the enemy, but they did not want to die. The spectators in the distance were silent. They did not dare to come forward to help. Without any defense, they would only be courting death if they interfered in such a battle. The battle continued endlessly. It had been going on for a long time, and it seemed like it would continue for a long time. Everyone who was watching the battle was a little tired. But right now, they could not go hunting, nor could they not go hunting. Chapter 48-78. As the old voice rang out, the surrounding battles all stopped. Everyone looked up at the sky. In a situation where both sides were unable to break through the defense, the only way to determine life and death was to exhaust the opponent. But this was very difficult. Therefore, this war no longer had much meaning. Zichen looked up at the sky and saw the old man in white robes descending from the sky. He was still kind, his white robes fluttering in the wind. Everyone bowed to him. Our original intention was to let you all become stronger here, not to become like this. The old man looked at everyone and said disappointedly, The battle strength of the extra-legal demons is very strong. What you see is only the weakest among them. And for you, you have just adapted. All the demons were stunned. The extra-legal demons were so strong, but they were the weakest among them? How could this be? Most of the weapons in your hands are of the trial level, and some of them are of the heaven's chosen level. Didn't you look carefully? No matter what level the weapons are, they are all broken. The old man said. These are what you rely on. They were broken by others in battle, so we picked them up for you to use in the trial. We didn't expect you to treat them as treasures, thinking that you have everything with them. Stupid, you are really stupid, the old man said bitterly. Relying on some broken weapons, you are all complacent and think that you are invincible. I really should let you see what true power is. His eyes swept over the demons, and finally the old man looked at the honored king and said, You want to be number one? Do you know how strong Gushan was back then? He only needs one slash to kill all of you in an instant. There was an uproar. They all knew that Gushan was very strong and was called number one, but they didn't expect him to be so strong. The honored king saluted the old man in white robes and said, In that case, why don't you give us the qualifications first, and then we can become stronger? If we give you the qualifications now, you will die. The old man said with dissatisfaction, I have a complete set of heaven's chosen weapons here, and I can give you a set. But what you will face is no longer the extra-legal demons here, but a higher level. With your lack of understanding of the extra-legal force, you will only die on that battlefield. The High King clearly did not agree with the old man. He said, Now that I am invincible, the trial is meaningless to me. Rather than wasting our time here, why don't we work hard to change this situation? The old man looked at the respectable king. Since you're so confident, why don't you take a walk in the depths? What depths? The High King did not understand. The old man snorted coldly and said, You ordered your men to chase after Zichen. You clearly knew that Zichen had gone deep into the forest, so why didn't you bring your men to chase after him? Why did you lure him out from the depths? The honorable king said. So you know everything. The white-robed old man said. We were the ones who created this place. Of course, we know everything that happens here. The honorable king smiled faintly. If that's the case, how can we talk about fairness? A hint of mockery appeared on the old man's lips. If it wasn't fair, you would have died long ago. Why would I let you cause so much trouble? We only care about the test and don't care about anything else. If you hadn't gone astray, this old man wouldn't have appeared. Then I understand. The honorable king nodded. The old man said, Now I'll give you two choices. One is that I give you the god's chosen weapon and send you to another battlefield. The other is that you continue to stay here. As for whether you continue to be the king or go on an adventure, that's up to you. What about you? The honorable king looked at Zichen. Zichen turned around and left, too lazy to talk nonsense with this guy. If it wasn't for the honorable king's trick, he would have already killed his way into the depths and might have even gotten a complete set of armor to wear. As soon as Zichen left, those who followed him also left. "If there's a next time, even if it takes a few decades, I'll still kill you." Zichen's group disappeared without a trace. The white-robed old man also disappeared. The Honorable King's previous question was already a choice. The enemy is gone, leaving behind only his own people. Those in the distance are just bystanders. After hesitating, they also left. This time, they didn't help the Honorable King. If they continue to stay here, their future days won't be easy. There weren't many evil demons left in this bustling city. Other than that, there were only corpses. The Honorable King waved his hand and took away King Giching's sword. The heart-protecting mirror was already broken and useless. If it was mended and brought back, the Lord might be able to use it, but the Honorable King wouldn't be interested. He glanced at the battered city. "Clean up, let's continue." However, his gaze was also looking into the depths. The moment Zichen broke the heart-protecting mirror, he felt the problem. Zichen's combat power had exceeded a limit. This time, he heard the old man say it clearly, which confirmed his guess. Then, if he wanted to become the strongest, he would have to go deeper. "It seems that infighting will never make him the strongest." The Honorable King understood this, but his eyes were cold. "But Zichen, you still have to die." His killing intent was still there. After Zichen and his group left the evil demon city, they landed on the peak of a mountain. "What do you plan to do next?" He looked at everyone. "Let's go back and rest for a while before going deeper," Meiji said after thinking for a while. Zichen nodded. This was actually quite good. Meiji and her group left, followed by Mei-in. This time, the monster monarch didn't go. In the past, he didn't dare to meet people because he was weak and could be killed with a slap. Now that he had recovered, he might not be the best at fighting, but he still had many ways to protect himself. So, he stood with everyone. "Master, are you going deeper?" Miao Miao looked at Zichen. "There are more extra-legal demons in the deeper areas. Of course, it's more dangerous, but it's also a challenge." Zichen nodded. After this incident, he had to make himself stronger. "Then we won't go with you, Master. We'll stay in the outer area for a while. When the time is right, we'll go deeper," Miao Miao said. Zichen nodded again. "That's good. No matter what, everyone has to have a defense. If you stay here, you have to be careful of the Gashan tribe. They might not let you go." Miao Miao smiled. "Don't worry, Master. We'll be fine." In the end, Zichen looked at the monster monarch. The monster monarch shook his head, indicating that he would stay. "If you're going to stay in the outer area, then pay more attention to my friends. Maybe they'll be here soon." They nodded. The monster monarch even volunteered, indicating that he would stay in the outer area for a long time. Zichen left alone, the cloak behind him. Chapter 48-79. Puff. The broken sword shot out like lightning, piercing through the head of an extra-legal demon and ending its life. The extra-legal demon fell to the ground. Zichen flew from behind and collected the spoils. He had been traveling alone for several days. He refined the extra-legal energy at night, and went out to hunt during the day. Zichen's battle strength had increased again. The points on the token had risen to 18 again. Looking at the sky, he decided to stop for the time being. He stopped on a mountain peak. He released his soul power and probed for danger within 1,000 miles. Shui Shang could also refine the extra-legal energy. Zichen gave it a portion. Other than the time when Zichen was hunted down and Shui Shang almost lost its life, Shui Shang had not appeared since. Zichen had an almost endless supply of extra-legal energy. After several days, Zichen entered the depths. Within the range of his senses, an extremely large city appeared. When he saw the city, his expression couldn't help but change. This city was much larger than the demon city of the respectable king. The city walls were tall and majestic. From afar, it looked like a terrifying beast crawling. When his soul perception landed on it, Zichen felt a strong sense of danger. He immediately withdrew his perception and retreated far away. A city like this must be where the extra-legal demons lived. How many extra-legal demons were there in such a large city? This should be the depths that the white-robed old man mentioned. Could the extra-legal demons break through the trial weapon? Zichen did not dare to act rashly. After all, he still had room for growth. Therefore, he planned to wait until he reached the bottleneck before coming here to explore. He began to retreat and return to the relatively outer regions. He began to hunt the extra-legal demons that failed to reach him and strengthen himself. Among them, the spirit of massacre that was born from the thunder manipulation art had improved the most. Every time Zichen killed an extra-legal demon, he could feel it growing stronger. Some of the life force was absorbed by the spirit of massacre. During this time, Zichen also paid attention to the outer regions to see if anyone else, such as the respectable king's men, had come. No, not a single one. Time passed day after day. Zichen, who still had room for growth, approached the city 3 times. Other than the first time, he didn't dare to send out his energy for the other 2 times. He just watched from afar with unprecedented caution. During this period of time, he saw 2 extra-legal demons flying away, but he did not see anyone fighting. Perhaps the extra-legal demons were getting along very well. Roughly half a year had passed. Zichen was still improving, and so was Shueshang. His accumulated points had already reached 300, but he had never gone to that space to exchange them. In the blink of an eye, another half a year had passed. During this half a year, Zichen had approached it 5 times, but he still didn't dare to enter. In the past year or so, he had not seen anyone else come. It seemed that he was the only one who had ventured in. Once, when Zichen was cautiously looking at a city in the distance, a person suddenly flew out of the city and directly flew towards Zichen. Zichen's expression changed, and he quickly retreated, hiding in a cave behind him. At the same time, he carefully controlled the rocks at the entrance to cover it. He wasn't sure if that extra-legal demon had seen him. Probably not. I've been very careful, and I haven't even released my soul power. I've also been vigilant of my surroundings, and I haven't sensed any other soul power. Zichen comforted himself in his heart. It's definitely just passing by. Maybe I'll have a chance to kill him. Come out, don't hide. A voice suddenly sounded from outside. I saw you long ago. Zichen held his breath. The other party might not be talking to him, or he might be saying that on purpose. Actually, he hadn't sensed anything? You've approached so many times, and you've been so careful every time. You're really a weirdo, the voice said again. You don't want to come out, right? Then I'll grab you out. The rock that was blocking the entrance of the cave exploded with a loud bang. A palm shot out like lightning and pulled Zichen out. Zichen punched out, and the power around him shook. Pa! The other party easily blocked it with his other hand. Little guy, you still want to resist? It was a middle-aged man with a smile on his face, but it was obvious that he was an extra-legal demon in human form. Zichen's body lit up again. It was the white jade bowl that he had exchanged for. It formed a repulsive force, and it was about to shake off the other party. This guy's combat power was very strong. At this moment, Zichen was panicking. An extra-legal demon had actually gotten close to him. Just a mere weapon for training. The extra-legal demon smiled faintly. With one hand holding Zichen, he clenched his other hand into a fist and punched out. The fist landed on the white jade bowl, and a few cracks immediately appeared on it. Zichen's eyes widened. Breaking the defense with one punch? Bang! The white jade bowl shattered, and the invincible defense that was worth more than 30 points was broken just like that. Zichen was shocked. He had encountered a tough opponent. Kid, what else do you have? Take it out and show it off. The extra-legal demon picked up Zichen and looked at him as if he was picking up a chicken. The cloak behind Zichen suddenly rolled up like a river of blood, enveloping the extra-legal demon. No! Zichen shouted anxiously. No matter how strong Shueshang's defense was, how could it be compared to the white jade bowl? If the other party's fist landed, Shui Shang would definitely die. Interesting. The extra-legal demon smiled faintly and punched again. The river of blood disappeared, and the cloak returned to Zichen's back. Swish! Shui Shang was not dead, but her breath was very weak. Zichen shook his shoulders, and the cloak left his back and flew into the distance. Trying to escape? The extra-legal demon reached out to grab the cloak. At this moment, Zichen's eyes flashed with madness. The broken sword attacked. At such a close distance, coupled with the slaughter spirit, the power of the broken sword was terrifying to the extreme. Eh? The extra-legal demon reached out to grab it, but the broken sword directly pierced through his palm and went straight to his sea of consciousness. Boom! In the next moment, the energy around the extra-legal demon raged like a hurricane, changing the trajectory of the broken sword. Boy, you are really ruthless! Ignoring the blood in his palm, the extra-legal demon slapped Zichen's head. I almost fell for your trick! Boy, you are too sneaky! Extra-legal demon, you can kill me, but you can't humiliate me! Zichen shouted and tried to struggle, but his strength was completely suppressed. Shui Shang floated to the side and did not take advantage of the precious time Zichen had bought to leave. Extra-legal demon? The other party laughed. Look at yourself, aren't you the same? Zichen was stunned. He was a human, a spirit clan. How could he be the same as the extra-legal demon? However, after Zichen used his own breath, he could clearly feel that he had changed a lot. The powerful energy he once had all changed and became extra-legal force. Chapter 4880. Zichen was stunned. Unknowingly, his energy had changed. Sensing himself from another angle, he found that he was an extra-legal demon in human form. He was no different from the man in front of him. You're from the spirit race? Zichen came back to his senses. The man had appeared suddenly, but he did not show any malice. Otherwise, Shui Shang would not have left the battlefield. But he had never seen such a powerful spirit race. He knew all the strong people in the Saint Spirit realm, and the strongest were only the High Kings hiding in their shells, unless the man in front of him was Gushan. But he had seen Gushan before, and he had taught him the mountain-cutting technique, so he knew he was not. The man smiled and asked, What spirit race? Zichen's expression changed again. If the man was not from the spirit race, then he was an extra-legal demon. Could it be that this was an extra-legal demon who had turned into a human and mistook him for one of his own race? Was that why he did not kill him? The man carried Zichen into the city. Then Zichen found that there were many people in this magnificent city. Or rather, there were extra-legal demons in human form. How could this be? Zichen could not understand. The man entered the city, still carrying Zichen. Along the way, Zichen found that many extra-legal demons were looking at him with strange expressions. Zichen was confused. Were these people or extra-legal demons? Coming to a street, the man carried Zichen into a tavern. There were 3 tables of people drinking in the tavern. When they saw the two enter, they all smiled. Is this the kid? A burly man with a full beard looked at Zichen. He sat alone at a table. There was a pot of wine and a bowl on the table, but there was no food to go with the wine. The other 2 tables had 3 people and 2 people. They were all drinking and had no dishes. Who else could it be? I've never seen such a coward. The man sat down and snapped his fingers. Give me a pot! The man quickly stopped, but it was too late. The bearded man from before said in surprise, Alva, you're hurt? The 5 people at the other 2 tables turned around and looked at Zichen as if they were looking at a rare species. Kid, was it you who injured Alva? The bearded man asked. No, he hurt himself. Zichen quickly shook his head. These people were looking at him with unkind eyes, so he naturally wouldn't admit it. Speaking of which, he was the one who wanted to grab the broken sword. He had indeed hurt himself. Zichen was not lying. This brat has some skills. He took advantage of my carelessness to trick me. Alva admitted it. If it weren't for his absolute power, he wouldn't have been able to come back. Zichun looked around vigilantly. Then, he realized that these people were laughing in schadenfreude and had no intention of standing up for Alva. Who are you? Looking at the crowd in the tavern, Zichun could not help but ask. Extralegal demons? The laughter around them grew louder. Zichun asked. The astrals? But why haven't I seen you before? The bearded man laughed. Kid, you're quite interesting. You have so many questions. Tell me, what's your name and where are you from? My name is Zichun. I'm from the Saint Spirit domain. Zichun could only introduce himself first, and then look at the others. Saint Spirit domain? Everyone was stunned when they heard this. Then, they looked at each other but had no intention of introducing themselves. The bearded man shook his head. I've never heard of this place. What about you? Nope. From the name, it seems to be an interesting place. Saint Spirit domain? Are they all Saint Spirits? Not very famous. Maybe it's a small place. These people who were drinking all laughed. Hearing that they were not joking, Zichun asked, Who are you guys? The bearded man drank a mouthful of wine and laughed. We're extralegal demons. The others roared with laughter. Zichun shook his head. No, I've never seen you guys in the Saint Spirit domain. It's unlikely that you guys are extralegal demons. Could this be the immortal spell domain? I've already walked into the immortal spell domain unknowingly. Everyone was still laughing, as if they had heard an extremely good joke. However, as they laughed and laughed, everyone fell silent. The originally cheerful atmosphere was now filled with sadness. Could it be because of the words immortal spell domain? Zichun looked at them in surprise. The bearded man took a big gulp of wine. The immortal spell domain. If someone hadn't mentioned it again, I would have King forgotten the purpose of coming here for the trial. Alva knocked on the table and sighed. After countless trials, we don't even know where the door to the immortal spell domain opens. What a failure! Looking at the puzzled Zichun, Alva said, Kid, you must have come from a small place and think that you're the only one in this world, right? Zichun nodded. The Saint Spirit domain had a boundless area, including the celestial, demon, and Yao races. It was a place where the four races coexisted. Alva shouted and quickly served the wine. At the same time, he gestured for Zichun to sit down. A very fat man walked over with a pot of wine and 2 bowls. There were no dishes to go with the wine. Alva poured a cup for himself first, then another for Zichun. Many years ago, when we first came here, we were the same as you. We also thought that this world was only so big. We also thought that we would advance through the battles and become the first to enter the immortal spell domain that belonged to us, and create another piece of glory. Zichun's expression changed because that was exactly what he thought. Not only him, but even the respectable king thought the same. Unfortunately, after staying in the trial world for so many years, we finally realized that we were wrong, very wrong. Alva pointed at himself and said, I'm from the Azure world, an extremely huge world with countless planets and endless lives. Alva pointed at the bearded man. He's from the Six Paths world, his territory shouldn't be smaller than the Azure world. And him, he's from the Thousand Spirits world. And they all come from different places. How did this happen? Zichun was confused. We also want to know why this happened. We were supposed to go to the immortal spell domain, but we stayed in the trial world and saw so many strangers. Of course, we're already used to it now. Alva said, The reason why we called you over is because you're too cautious. We approached several times and didn't come in, so we wanted to help you. At the same time, we also wanted to tell you in advance that there's no way forward for your dreams. This is the end. There's no need to go any further. It's the same everywhere. Have a sip and taste it. It's not bad. Alva raised the wine bowl and smiled at Zichun. After drinking the wine, he shouted, How satisfying! Zichun also raised his bowl, but after taking a sip, he spat out the wine. Satisfying my ass, it was no different from water. At this moment, the two old men, black and white, were equally confused. Chapter 4881. This trial space was personally opened up by the two old men using their unique nomological methods. But now, this space was undergoing a strange change, forcefully merging with another space of unknown origin. This was a change that was beyond the two old men's imagination. How can this be? By the time the two old men noticed the change, it was already too late for them to stop it. These two old men who had been calm and collected for many years now had a change in their expressions. For the first time, there was even panic in their eyes. This was a special event that was beyond their expectations. No matter what is going on, we have to stop this from happening. The old man in white robes was surrounded by light. This was a kind of energy that was between power and law, not belonging to any faction. The old man in black robes was furious. This is against the rules. And with this, there will be chaos. What rules are there? A voice suddenly sounded. You two have finally appeared. If you didn't, we would really think that the two of you were killed. Looking at the old man who appeared out of nowhere, the old man in white robes asked, Zeus, why are you still here? You haven't gone back after so many years? Back where? It's a mess, it's a mess. The old man named Zeus sighed. We have no home to return to. Asterisk 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 asterisk. Sichin looked at Arwa with a bitter face. What kind of wine is this? It's not even as good as water. Arwa said. You should be content. Even if it's a wine like this, the more you drink, the less you will drink. After a while, you won't even be able to drink this wine anymore. Kid, you should be content. With your current strength, you can't even buy this bowl of wine, said the bearded man from the Six Paths world. Sichin had no choice but to take another sip. Only then did he realize the wonders of this wine. Although it tasted bad, it was as if he had refined the extra shackled energy, strengthening his strength. And this was much faster than refining the extra shackled energy. You feel it? Arwa looked at Sichin. Sichin nodded and asked in shock. What wine is this? Why is it so effective? Actually, this isn't really wine. It's just some law fragments mixed in the spring water, said Arwa. Rule fragments? As an existence who stood at the peak of the Saint Spirit realm, Sichin naturally knew what a nomological fragment was. However, he had not expected to hear such a familiar term in such a city. This is very different from the rule fragments you think of. The fragments here are of a higher level. You can call them trial fragments. They are unpredictable, and you need a certain amount of luck to obtain them. Once you have a fragment, you can advance to the trial realm even faster. Hearing Arwa's words, Sichin asked in confusion. Trial realm? I only know of the trial level. Is there such a realm here? A man sitting next to him said. What kind of realm is this? It's just a name that some bored people came up with at the last moment. But as time passed and more people came, everyone got used to it. The other party looked at Sichin. According to these temporary but habitual realms, you haven't reached the training realm yet. However, since you were able to injure Arwa, you barely have the combat strength of a trial taker. Sichin was still puzzled. If there was such a place in the depths, why didn't the two elders tell him earlier? One had to know that the two of them had said that there was a great danger in the depths, but they had never mentioned such a city. Moreover, the two of them had never mentioned the world outside the Saint Spirit realm. Now that they had suddenly appeared in front of him, Sichin found it hard to accept. You're too cautious. We approached this place several times and didn't enter. We were also worried about you. If you were to go around this place one day and go to the immortal Slaughter City, you would really not be able to return, said Arwa. Immortal Slaughter City? Zichen's eyes widened. There's a second city? You're so surprised. How rare. Arwa pursed his lips and glanced at Zichen's empty bowl. His heart ached as he poured half a bowl of wine for Zichen. Right at this moment, a person walked in. Zichen's back was facing that person, so he did not see the other party's face. However, he could clearly feel that everyone's expressions had tightened. They were no longer as relaxed as before. Zichen was a little curious about who exactly was that person. At that moment, a voice sounded. "Did you bring him in?" It was a female voice. Zichen turned around in surprise and saw a tall woman with a huge saber in her hand. She threw it on the table casually. The table shook and made a sound as if it would fall apart at any time. "He's still very cautious, so Awa brought him in." The bearded man stood up and said cautiously. Awa gave Zichen a look, indicating that he should stand up quickly. Zichen then realized that everyone who was drinking had stood up at some point. "Boss, he said that his name is Zichen and that he came from a place called the Spirit Realm." "Saint Spirit Realm," Zichen added. Awa glared at Zichen as if to say that he did not need to be so nosy. "This is our boss, Helen. She specifically instructed us to keep an eye on you, lest you go to the immortal slaughter city to die because of your weak strength." Zichen, who knew a little about the situation, hurriedly cupped his fists at Helen. "Consider it a greeting gift." Helen nodded and then threw out a walnut-sized crystal. Zichen caught it subconsciously and felt the terrifying energy contained in it. He glanced at Awa and found that his eyes were burning. He guessed that it was a trial fragment. "It's too expensive." Zichen hurriedly declined. "What's so expensive about a greeting gift? After accepting it, you'll be a member of the team. Before you have the ability to protect yourself, you can only listen to the team's arrangements. When you have the ability to protect yourself, you can make a new choice." Everyone's expression changed. Awa seemed to want to say something, but in the end, he did not speak. However, the way he looked at Zichen was not as passionate as before. Instead, there was a complicated look in his eyes. Boss Helen did not say anything. The fat shopkeeper brought over a pot of wine. Helen did not even ask for a bowl. She raised the bottle and drank to her heart's content. "Impossible, this is absolutely impossible. Hugh, don't even think about it." Looking at Hugh in front of him, the black-robed old man shook his head resolutely. The white-robed old man frowned. The situation was more troublesome than he had imagined. "Blacklake, don't worry. This is not my idea alone. It's everyone's idea." Hugh pointed at his feet. "Since we can't find our way home, why should we be so stubborn? Isn't it better to create a home that belongs to us here?" The black-robed old man's real name was Blacklake. He said with a serious face, "Our duty is to bring everything into order and do everything according to the rules. We will never do anything that doesn't conform to the rules." Chapter 4882. Balek looked at Seuss, who was speaking with confidence. "You have a good plan, but why did you come to us?" Seuss smiled helplessly. "I had no choice. Out of all the worlds, only you are still connected to your original world. The others have become one-way paths. You can only enter but not return. So you forcefully merged with our trial realm and wanted to use our path to enter the Saint Spirit domain?" Balek frowned. "After unifying the Saint Spirit domain, you want to use it as a springboard to find the coordinates of those worlds and then unify the other worlds? Old White, you are the one who understands." Seuss laughed. "That's right. That's what we mean. What nonsense!" Blacklake snorted coldly. "Have you all forgotten what your duties are? Now you want to unify all the worlds. That's crazy. Old Black, your thinking is too old-fashioned. It's not that we want to change. The environment is forcing us to change." Seuss waved his hand. "Anyway, I can't explain it to you. Old White, you decide. Just tell me, are you giving us the coordinates?" Balek did not answer the question directly. Instead, he asked, "Do you know why the Immortal Spells world did not unify all the worlds when they had the ability to control them? Instead, they sent us down? Of course it's to maintain the order of the worlds," Seuss said unhappily. "Old White, what do you mean by that? The will of the Immortal Spells world was to not interfere with the operation of the worlds. Now you want to unify all these worlds. This is already going against the will of the immortal spells world. Balak shook his head. I'm sorry. Us two brothers will not do such a thing. We will not help you. Old White, are you stupid? I told you, we can't go home. The immortal spells world is probably gone. Sue stood up agitatedly. The void is filled with broken law fragments. It's very likely that this is the broken immortal spells world. Now, if we want to save ourselves, we can only open another world. He pointed at the ground beneath his feet. This is the trial realm now. But as long as we merge with your trial realm and make some changes, it will become a new immortal spells world. As for us, we will be the new masters of the immortal spell world. We can completely control those who ascend here. Previously, we were only abiding by the will of the immortal spell world. Now that we have left the immortal spell world and have our own will, isn't that great? The more Seuss spoke, the more agitated he became. Previously, we were like dogs to others. Now that we're the ones in charge, the two of you aren't happy. What's wrong? Do you have a sense of superiority as dogs? Seuss, who are you calling a dog? Blacklake was furious. Balak waved his hand and said, Don't waste your energy. I believe that you can only represent the will of some people. There should be a lot of people who oppose you, right? Leave, we won't agree to this. If you don't agree, you can only stay here. It's impossible for you to return to your original world. Seuss coldly snorted. After the trial realms merge, it will be even more impossible for you to open the path back. Therefore, I will give you some time to consider. With that, Seuss flicked his sleeves and left. What should we do? I need to stop the fusion of the trial realms first. After drinking, Alva took Sichin to find a place to stay. Their boss, Helen, was still there. The place they lived was some distance away from the tavern, and it was relatively remote. According to Alva, there was rent to live here. It was just that the city lord didn't deliberately ask for it. If there was money, he would give it. If there wasn't, then it was fine. This city was called Peace City, which was the complete opposite of Immortal Slayer City. In Big Beard's words, the people of Immortal Slayer City were all arrogant. Slayer meant to kill, and Immortal meant to kill their way into the Immortal Slayer realm. Their arrogance made people click their tongues. Our team will often form teams to enter the void to search for fragments. Your realm is low, so just follow behind us when the time comes. Speaking of this, Alva's mood fell again. The way he looked at Sichin became complicated. Io, is this the newbie you found who's afraid of death? A faint mocking voice suddenly sounded in front of him. Sichin looked up and saw 3 men walking towards him. The leader was looking at him with a mocking expression. Piessa! Alva's eyes were cold. Why are you still here? Here to do some things. What a coincidence. Piessa looked at Sichin and smiled faintly. This little guy has become the laughingstock of Peace City. I heard about it as soon as I arrived. You guys actually brought him back. It seems that after I left for so many years, your team is getting worse and worse. You even want this kind of trash. You weren't as good as him back then, but didn't we still accept you? Alva said. But I didn't expect that we would find an ingrate. If I had known, I would have just watched you die outside. Piessa said sarcastically. That's because you guys were too weak. With the benefits you gave me in the beginning, you want me to stick to you in the future? You're thinking too much. Bull**T. Since when did we want you to repay us? Alva glared at Piessa. That's because I'm alert. I left when I sensed something was wrong, Piessa said. You'd better be polite to me in the future. Otherwise, don't blame me for not remembering our old friendship when we met in the void. Also, I'm going to bring some newbies to the void these few days, so I advise you to tell Helen not to go out with your team. Otherwise, I won't be able to resist killing you. You're all newbies, but look at Peace City and our Immortal Slayer City. They're not even on the same level. Let's go. Piessa left with the other 2. Among them, there was a young man. When he left, he smiled coldly at Sichin and made a throat-slitting gesture. What are the people from the Immortal Slayer City doing here? After Piessa left, Alva's expression changed. Let's go. I'll take you to your place first. What's with that pieza? Asked Zichen. He's the same as you. Back then, he was wandering outside and didn't dare to come in. But he wasn't careful enough and encountered danger. It was the boss who brought him back. At that time, the boss also had the same attitude. Before he could protect himself, he would stay in the team and only choose a team when he had the strength to protect himself. Zichen said. So, he chose to leave the second time? Chapter 4883. Alva brought Zichen back to his residence. It was a separate room with complete facilities. After settling Zichen down, Alva left in a hurry. He had to tell his boss the news as soon as possible. Zichen sat in the room, still puzzled. He had only come to the depths of the trial. How had he encountered people from other worlds? Moreover, he had always thought that there was only one Saint Spirit realm in the world and that the immortal spell realm was above it. Now, there were so many unfamiliar worlds. These worlds were obviously different from the Saint Spirit realm. They were not even close. Zichen decided to ask the two old men about the situation. Therefore, he took out the trial token and sank his mind into it. Zichen found himself still sitting in the same place. Huh! Zichen's expression changed. He did not react. One had to know that there were still more than 200 points on the trial token that had not been exchanged. Zichen was puzzled. He did not know what was going on. When Alva returned, Zichen told him that he had to go back first. People from the Immortal Slayer city almost never come here. Nothing good can come out of it. After I told my boss, he told us to be careful. You'd better not run around, Alva advised. Zichen shook his head. I have some problems here. I have to go back. After a slight pause, Zichen said. Also, I still have some points that have not been exchanged. If you need them, feel free to exchange them. Otherwise, they might be useless. Alva's eyes widened when he heard that. He said in surprise, Are you talking about the trial token? You know about it too? Zichen looked at him in surprise. Your trial token can be exchanged for things? Alva was puzzled. So many years have passed. You still haven't exchanged your items? Zichen did not know what he was talking about. They were obviously not talking about the same thing. He did not explain further, and said that he had to go back and take a look. This time, Alva did not stop him. This was a good thing. Compared to the current situation where they could only search for treasures in the void, Zichen's method of obtaining treasures was a shortcut. Zichen declined Alva's kind offer to travel with him. He left Peace City and flew back the way he had come. Along the way, Zichen was very careful to prevent anyone from following him. Now, he seemed to understand why he was the only one who had come to the depths after such a long time. Some changes had occurred in the trial world that he didn't know about. On the way back, Zichen kept looking at the token, constantly sensing it and silently calculating the distance. According to his estimation, he should have reached the periphery long ago, but the token was still not activated. Could it be that I accidentally entered another world, so the token can't be used now? You can't go back either? Zichen muttered in his heart. At this moment, the token suddenly lit up and Zichen's figure disappeared. He arrived at the exchange space. The items here were much fewer than before. Zichen roughly glanced at those things, then shouted, Senior, senior! His main purpose was to look for the two old men. Exchanging items was secondary. However, while he was shouting, his eyes were also sizing up those things. He needed to spend all these points now. Just as Zichen was carefully inspecting, he discovered that the weapons and cultivation techniques that could be exchanged were decreasing at a speed visible to the naked eye. There was no one else here. Why were the items decreasing? Whoosh! 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 A few more items were missing. When Zichen saw this, he was clearly a little anxious. He hurriedly pointed at a ring with 235 points. Before he could carefully sense the ring in his hand, the white-robed old man appeared in front of Zichen. After putting away the ring, Zichen saw that the old man looked worried and tired. His expression changed. Senior, something happened? The white-robed old man nodded. Our trial world is about to be forcefully merged. Zichen was enlightened. Now he understood everything. Aren't you surprised? The white-robed old man asked curiously. Zichen told him what he had seen in the depths. This was something that Balak could not sense. After listening to Zichen, he had a general idea of what was going on. The people living in Peace City were probably content with the status quo and did not intend to break the rules. On the other hand, the people in Immortal Slaughter City were probably a group of radicals. Zeus was most likely relying on the people in that city. Senior, you seem very tired. Zichen looked at the white-robed old man. Balak said, To be honest, the two of us are trying to prevent this from happening. However, it's obvious that we can only delay the merging. It won't be long before this trial world merges into the Great World. Zichen asked. Will the situation worsen after the merging? Balak sighed. Once it merges, there's no going back. They want to build a new immortal technique realm. In the future, you can only enter but not leave. Zichen's expression changed. His friends were in the Saint Spirit realm. How could they not return? Is there any way to stop this? Zichen asked. There's no way now. Moreover, this is not the worst. Just as the two of them were conversing, the things here decreased by a lot. Balak said helplessly. Right now, the biggest problem is the coordinates of the Saint Spirit realm. Once the coordinates are leaked, the people of Immortal Slaughter City will probably attack the Saint Spirit realm. Their goal is not only to unify the Saint Spirit realm, but also to borrow the orthodoxy of the 10,000 realms from the Saint Spirit realm. 10,000 realms is a general term for many worlds. It's not the myriad spirit realm that you're talking about. You can think of the Saint Spirit realm as a universe, and the 10,000 realms as other universes. The Immortal Technique realm was originally the center of a higher-level universe. All higher-level life forms ultimately belong to that place. However, due to some problems in the Immortal Technique realm, they can't bring everyone in. Therefore, they want to turn this trial world into a new Immortal Technique realm universe. At the same time, they want to use the Saint Spirit realm universe as a springboard to rule all the universes. In the past, the Immortal Technique realm only sent us to maintain the order of the various universes. We were not allowed to interfere in anything. However, this time, they want to unify this place and set new rules. Their ambition is even greater than the Immortal Technique realms. Zichen was very shocked. This was the real secret. However, Zichen soon started to worry. They're so aggressive. Will the two seniors be in danger? Our identities are special. We can be said to be immortal. We won't be in danger, Balak said. However, I'm worried that they will enter our trial realm and make a breakthrough there. After all, our trial realm is close to the Saint Spirit realm. It can even be said that it was built with the Saint Spirit realm as its foundation. Looking at the slightly stunned Zichen, Balak reminded him. Therefore, you have to grow up as soon as possible. As time passes, our authority will become smaller and smaller. Once the trial world is completely integrated, we won't have the right to speak anymore. When that time comes, no one can go back. Zichen thought of Alva and the others. They seemed to be at ease, but they had already accepted their fate. Chapter 4884. Feeling the tremors in this space, Zichen's expression changed. If this place collapsed, they would no longer be able to exchange for anything. As for the points, they would be completely useless. Balak's expression also changed, and he cried out, Oh no, this place is going to collapse! What should we do? Zichen was a little anxious. This was not only about him, but also about all the demons who had come here from the Saint Spirit realm. Without this exchange space, it would be even more difficult for everyone to survive. It's because of the fusion of the trial realms. Balak frowned and glanced at Zichen, feeling a little troubled. Senior, if you have something to say, just say it. As long as I can help, I'll do my best. Zichen immediately said. Your tokens are divided into grades. The stronger your combat power, the higher the grade of your token. Judging from the current situation, as long as we take back your token, we can temporarily stabilize this place. Next, we'll work harder, and it shouldn't be too difficult to completely stabilize this place. Balak hesitated. However, this also means that you won't be able to come to this exchange space in the future. You have permanently lost the right to exchange. Zichen nodded and took out the trial order without hesitation. Since that's the case, let's make it disappear. If he went to Peace City, he wouldn't have the chance to exchange for anything, so giving up the trial token was nothing to him. Moreover, if he gave it up alone, more people could obtain it. It was very worth it. Balak took back Zichen's token, and then the token dissipated in his hand, turning into a strange energy that replenished the surroundings. Sure enough, the space that was originally shaking became stable. After a while, it stopped shaking. This space is stable for now. It's just that you've been wrong, Balak said with some shame. Zichen shook his head, indicating that it was not a problem. Balak said, Since this place is still under our control, we'll make an exception this time. This is for you. Consider it compensation for losing the trial token. Balak took out a golden light and handed it to Zichen. Don't refuse. This is all I can do. From now on, you have to rely on yourself. Zichen received it with both hands. The golden light was a little heavy in his hands. Zichen couldn't tell what it was at the moment. Without examining it carefully, Zichen put away the golden light. Now that the token was gone, there was no point for Zichen to stay here. Besides, he obviously couldn't help with the matters here. After saluting Balak, Zichen said goodbye and left. After returning to the place where he had disappeared, Zichen now had two paths to take. One was to return to Peace City, while the other was to continue onwards to find his friends and tell them what had happened. Zichen hesitated. This was very rare. He didn't want his friends to take risks and worry for nothing, but he also didn't want to see them defenseless when danger came. After much consideration, Zichen decided to move forward. Along the way, Zichen displayed his extreme speed. Along the way, he saw extra-legal demons but did not kill them. The extra-legal demons seemed to have sensed the dangerous aura on Zichen and avoided him. Now, he didn't get any points from killing the extra-legal demons, but he still had a lot of energy. After traveling for a while, Zichen suddenly stopped. He shook slightly, and the cloak left his back. Shueshang, go and tell everyone this news. I won't be going back. Zichen looked at the human form of Shueshang. I'll give all this energy to you. Tell them that they must become stronger. They must exchange their points. Also, tell them everything you saw in Peace City so that they can prepare in advance. Yes, young master. Shueshang bowed to Zichen in the air before transforming back into a cloak and flying away. Zichen began to turn back and return to Peace City. There were no guards outside the city, and there were no guards inside the city. Along the way, he saw a few people looking at him strangely. Zichen knew that because of his cautiousness, he was already famous here. However, they didn't know that he came from a new world. After returning to his residence, Zichen took out the nomological fragment that Helen had given him and began to refine it. The effect of refining the fragment was indeed much faster than the energy. Moreover, the fragment's grade was higher. 2 days later, half of the fragment that Helen had given him was left. Zichen's improvement was not small. Zichen, come out quickly. Our team is about to set off. Alva's voice sounded from outside the house. Zichen put away the fragment, opened the door, and walked out. Let's go. Today, I'll take you to travel the void. Alva smiled at Zichen. This team was called Helen's team because the leader was Helen. Including the leader herself, there were 8 people in the team. Zichen was the 9th person in the team. When Zichen walked out, everyone was already waiting here. All of them looked very excited. Why do we have to go out today? Zichen followed beside Alva and asked curiously. We go to the void every once in a while. There's no choice. If we don't come back with something, we won't even be able to drink. That small pub was the team's temporary base. For these people who had accepted their fate, they would naturally exchange some fragments for drinks. Zichen thought of what Pieser had said last time. He was obviously in the void as well. Wasn't he worried that they would run into each other? As if he had guessed Zichen's concerns, Alva smiled and said, "Don't worry. The void is very big. It won't be that easy to run into each other. Even if we do, with the leader around, Pieser will have to tuck his tail between his legs." After the two of them arrived, Helen glanced at them and said, "Alva, you're in charge of his safety." Without waiting for Alva to nod, Helen said, "Let's go." The 9 of them left the city. After walking for more than 100 feet, Helen suddenly took out her huge knife and slashed at the void. A crack extended for more than 100 feet. Helen was the first to jump in. Zichen was a little surprised. She left just like that? The others seemed to be used to this and followed. "Let's go. As long as we remember this place, we'll be able to return." Alva patted Zichen's shoulder lightly and jumped in with Zichen. After entering the void, Zichen turned back and found that the entrance had disappeared. "Let's go. The leader will naturally have a way to bring us back." The 9 of them walked forward. Along the way, there was a dark void. There was no one else in sight. Is this how we find fragments? Zichen looked at the vast void. That's right. It's a matter of luck. But there will always be fragments. Where did these fragments come from? From the shattered world. Alva paused and said, "It's said that they were left behind from the shattered immortal spell world. Otherwise, they wouldn't be of such high quality. The immortal spell world really shattered?" Chapter 4885. No one knew if the immortal spell world had really shattered, but everyone knew the rumor that the immortal spell world had shattered. Because this was the only explanation that could explain why no one could go to the immortal spell world and why there were so many fragments in the void. The others walked in front while Arwa and Zichen walked behind. Seeing Zichen's gaze, Arwa smiled and said, "Don't be nervous. You're just a spectator this time. Just learn more." Eldest Helen walked in front, while Big Beard followed behind. Arwa pointed at him and said, "Big Beard, his original name is long forgotten. He probably forgot it himself." Beside Big Beard, 2 people were whispering. Arwa said, "Qian He, Qian Fei, family from the Thousand Spirit Realm. According to them, they're from a very powerful family. Unfortunately, they can't go back. It's impossible for them to be a young master of a family. Luo Xiao, from the Heaven Dipper realm. Kaleo, Kem." Arwa briefly introduced the others to Zichen. Zichen memorized them one by one. "The void is a huge treasure trove for us. There's everything inside." Arwa said, "If you want to improve your realm and combat strength, you have to borrow the power of the fragments." Zichen asked, "Are fragments easy to find?" "It depends on luck. If you're lucky, you can find a big fragment. If you're unlucky, you might find a broken space without a single fragment inside." Arwa paused and said, "They're valuable fragments." Zichen nodded. He understood. "Got it. Look in front." Arwa's eyes suddenly lit up. A beam of light appeared in front of them and flew straight toward them. Zichen had already released his soul power. This fragment was only the size of a palm, but everyone's expression changed, including eldest Helen. Zichen was confused. At this moment, Helen immediately went forward and grabbed the fragment. Ripples appeared on the surface of the fragment, and Helen was sucked in. Zichen's expression changed. There was something else. Whoosh! Big Beard followed in without hesitation. Qian Fei and Qian He entered after 2 breaths. This team had already formed a great tacit understanding. After another 3 breaths of time, Luo Xiao, Kaleo, and Kem entered. "Boss will go first to investigate the danger. The others will follow closely behind. This is the rule." Alva stepped forward unhurriedly. "As for us, we are here to be spectators. Of course, if there are any gains this time, you and I will also have a share. This has always been the rule set by Boss. I don't dare to say anything else. In the entire Peace City, Boss is probably the kindest person. Go! The two of them were the last to enter. After entering this space, Zichen first sensed a violent gale. This space was about 3,000 meters wide. Below him was a vast expanse of yellow sand that covered the sky. The soul power released by Zichen was somewhat obstructed. Apart from the fierce wind, there was nothing else. Naturally, there was no hidden danger. It's hard to find anything in a place like this. The wind was too strong. Alva's voice sounded in Zichen's mind. This is a dead space. There isn't even any life. Of course, there won't be any fragments of opportunity. At this moment, apart from the two of them, the others had already scattered. Like bandits entering their home, they searched everywhere. Helen chopped down with her sword. A mountain was split into two. She entered the ground. The others also followed suit. Alva continued, Since we're here, we can't miss it. Even if we guess that there might be nothing, we should still search seriously. What are you waiting for? Why aren't you looking around? Just then, Big Beard's voice sounded. Alva smiled embarrassedly. Let's go. There's no danger. I can also show you around. You can also get used to our searching method. The two of them descended into the vast expanse of yellow sand. Alva stomped his foot. A huge crack appeared under his feet. The ground moved to the sides, revealing an empty underground. Alva glanced around and walked to another place. He continued to stomp on the ground. Why are you doing this? Zichen didn't understand. They weren't here to look for things. They were clearly here to destroy. As long as we're here, we won't be able to protect this world. Of course, we'll look for whatever there is. Alva turned around and said, This is also an unwritten rule. All discovered spaces must be destroyed. Alva waved his hand again. As for the reason, I don't know. Don't just stand there. Hurry up and move. Otherwise, people will say that you're slacking off. Just move around casually and look around. There's definitely nothing good in this broken place. Just put on a show. Zichen nodded. Then, he walked around and looked. His soul power covered the surroundings. He wanted to find something different. However, these people who were obviously stronger than Zichen couldn't find anything. Zichen didn't expect to find anything either. But now that everyone was working hard, it wouldn't be right if he didn't take action. Arriving in front of a mountain, Zichen stretched out his hand. He was about to split the mountain in two. Just then, he saw a cave. So, he walked over. Previously, when he scanned the surroundings with his soul power, he didn't find anything. Entering the cave, it was empty as expected. There were no signs of man-made excavation on either side of the cave. It should be a beast cave. Zichen walked inside. The cave was more than 10 feet long. At the end, there was a small turn. It should be the beast's sleeping place. It could also be a person sitting cross-legged. There was a thick pile of soil on the ground. Other than that, there was nothing else. Zichen took a look and planned to leave. At this moment, the mountain peak began to shake. The dust settled down, and a black object was revealed. Zichen was stunned. He bent down and picked it up. It was an oval-shaped black stone. It didn't look very eye-catching. He had seen many similar things along the way. Above his head, dust kept falling. There were also some gravel. The mountain was obviously going to collapse. Zichen quickly rushed out. It was Big Beard. He had already arrived. After seeing Zichen, he smiled and asked, Did you find anything? Obviously, he had seen Zichen go in and deliberately touch the mountain. Zichen threw the stone over. I just picked it up. Big Beard looked disgusted. He flicked his hand lightly. With a ding, the stone flew back to Zichen. Big Beard was surprised. According to his original plan, he was going to break it with a flick of his finger. Zichen was also a little surprised. This stone seemed to be quite sturdy. He reached out and took it. He looked it up and down a few times. Then, he released his soul power. There was nothing unusual. He squeezed it. It was quite sturdy. So, he reached out to Big Beard. Big Beard shook his head, indicating that he didn't need to look anymore. Soon, everyone finished exploring this place. They turned and left. Helen was the last to leave. After she left, this world collapsed. In the void, Zichen and the others watched this small fragment disappear. Arwa shrugged. See, this is what it means to gain nothing. Chapter 4886. Everyone saw the obsidian in Zichen's hand, but their expressions didn't change much. There were many similar obsidian in all shapes and sizes. Why did you pick up a rock? Alva asked doubtfully. I found it in a cave. It's very hard. Zichen passed the obsidian in his hand to Alva. Previously, he had sensed it many times. It was just a hard rock. Apart from that, it had no other uses. Alva took it and looked at it. He tried to crush it but to no avail. He exclaimed in surprise. Interesting. You guys try it too. He passed it to the others. Naturally, they didn't find anything useful. Finally, it was passed to Luo Xiao. Helen glanced at him. Luo Xiao immediately passed the obsidian to Zichen. Here you go. Zichen was slightly startled. In the future, we will often encounter strange things. Most of them are useless. Only a few might be useful. If you want to comprehend it, you can keep it. If you don't want to comprehend it, you can just throw it away, Luo Xiao said. Everyone continued forward. Zichen and Alva were still walking at the back. Zichen was playing with the obsidian in his hand along the way. They didn't find anything this time, but they weren't dispirited. This scene should have happened many times. Along the way, Alva told Zichen about the interesting things that happened in the past. Occasionally, he would laugh. Amidst the laughter, there were some embarrassing stories. The others were also chatting and laughing. In this pitch-black void, there didn't seem to be any danger. Not long after, the second light appeared in their perception. Everyone's expression changed. It was still the same formation as before. Everyone entered the fragment space one by one. When Zichen was the last to enter, the battle had already begun. It was a huge tortoise. It was at least a few thousand meters long, and carried an entire mountain range on its back. Good heavens! Such a huge boundary spirit! Alva was a little surprised. It seems like the harvest this time is not small. As if seeing Zichen's confusion, Arwa explained. In a broken world, there are boundary spirits. They absorb the power of the broken world to grow. As long as you kill the boundary spirit, the broken world will be destroyed. Pointing at the boundary spirit turtle, Arwa continued. If there are living creatures in this broken world, then the possibility of there being other good things in this broken world is very small. Because boundary spirits are blessed by nature, they will definitely devour all the energy in this broken world, leaving no room for other things to exist. 6 Paths Reincarnation. Zichen heard Big Beard's voice, and a dazzling light fell on the big turtle's body. It was like a spinning wheel of light that cut into the big turtle's body. During this time, sparks flew everywhere. The realm spirit turtle's defense was astonishing. The realm spirit tortoise let out a shriek. This entire space was trembling. It spat out yellow sand from its mouth, which immediately covered the sky. Pillars of sand rose from the ground and shot towards the light wheel. Thousand Feather Crane! This was Thousand Feather Crane's voice. His figure disappeared into thin air, and in the blink of an eye, thousands of feather cranes appeared. They were like real life, and they rushed towards the realm spirit tortoise. The mountains on the realm spirit tortoise's back exploded one after another, and the yellow sand formed a sand shield around it. Luo Zhao's body was surrounded by light as he rapidly approached the turtle. Everywhere he passed, the yellow sand's attacks were unable to break through his defense. Helen stood to the side without making a move, but Zichen sensed that she had been accumulating power all this time. Once she made a move, it would definitely be a thunderous strike. Alva said. The 6 paths technique is the strongest technique in Big Beard's world. The 1000 spirit technique is the strongest technique in the Two Brothers world. You've seen Luo Zhao's heavenly spirit. Everyone here has mastered the strongest technique of their own world. What's the strongest technique of your world? This question stumped Zichen. In the past, he had possessed the strongest power of the god, devil, and spirit races. Step by step, he had been able to maintain his powerful combat strength. This was also the reason why he had been able to walk step by step until today. But ever since he entered the trial realm, everything had changed. His previous advantage in strength was disappearing. As for the strongest technique of the spirit realm, he didn't know what it was. He believed that the others didn't know either. Was it the mountain chopping technique? Zichen shook his head. The mountain chopping technique was a killing move that Gushan taught him, so it shouldn't be the strongest technique of the Saint's spirit realm. Seeing Zichen's expression, Alva had a look of understanding. I know it's lost. This kind of situation is very common. At this moment, the sky suddenly lit up, and thousands of swords appeared in the air, shining with cold light and filled with killing intent. This is Qianfei's technique, also evolved from the 1000 spirit technique. The light swords pierced through the yellow sand in the sky and landed on the realm spirit tortoise's defense. The layers of yellow sand began to collapse. With a loud bang, the realm spirit tortoise's defense was completely shattered under the joint attack of everyone. At this moment, Helen, who had been motionless all this time, seemed to have used the teleportation technique. She directly appeared beside the realm spirit tortoise, and raised a large blade in her hand. One! The blade trembled, and Zichen felt a strong killing intent. The gravity of this space seemed to have changed at this moment. His body suddenly sank, falling more than 100 feet down. Looking up at the sky, light flowed around Alva's body, and he had a mocking smile on his face. I forgot to tell you, when boss attacks, the gravity of the surrounding space will change. With the increase of gravity, the power of that blade will naturally be stronger. Obviously, it wasn't that he forgot, but that Alva was deliberately waiting for him to attack. But now that Helen had already attacked, Zichen didn't care about this. He looked forward. Under the sudden gravity, the realm spirit tortoise's speed had obviously slowed down, and it was too late for it to retract its head. Pooh! With a flash of light, Helen's long blade chopped down, and the realm spirit tortoise's head fell. Its body began to tremble, and the space around it also shook. Let's go, this place is going to collapse, Alva reminded Zichen, and flew up into the sky. Zichen looked into the distance while flying up. The dead realm spirit tortoise suddenly emitted a dazzling light, and its body quickly shrank. Finally, it turned into fragments and fell into Helen's hand. Shwa! 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 Everyone flew out and looked at this small fragment in the air. The fragment was trembling, and soon it would shatter. Helen was the last one to come out. This fragment shattered, leaving behind a thumb-sized light. The bearded man immediately grabbed it, and said with a smile, Good luck, there's something else. At this moment, everyone's attention was on Helen. She was holding a head-sized fragment in her hand. The fragment was bright and dazzling, like a small sun, illuminating the surrounding space. My luck is not bad. With this size and brightness, it should be an intermediate fragment. Helen flipped her hand and put away the fragment. She was in a good mood and said, Let's go back. The others cheered. Zichen was startled. How long had it been since they came out, and now they were going back? This is a big harvest, we should go back and drink. Chapter 4887. The group didn't continue searching for fragments, and returned to Peace City under Helen's lead. The others went to drink and celebrate. This had already become a habit, but Zichen didn't have such a habit. He returned to his residence alone. He still had many things to do. He hadn't carefully looked at the ring he had exchanged for, and he felt that the black stone was somewhat extraordinary. He didn't know what the light old man Balak had given him was. He didn't have time to look at it, as he still needed to refine the fragment. Zichen first took out the ring and looked at it. It was a weapon that could be used for both offense and defense. It was of the same grade as the broken sword, a fragment of the Heaven's chosen grade. It could be used after some refinement. Next, Zichen tried to examine the item old man Balak had given him. At first, there was no reaction, but as time passed and Zichen calmed down, the light before him finally changed. HM? Zichen's expression suddenly changed. This was actually a spell, ancestral prison. Not long ago, Zichen had heard from Arwa that every world had a strongest spell. Now Zichen guessed that the spell that the old man had given him through the back door was the strongest spell that had been lost in the Saint Spirit realm. Zichen's soul power entered it, and began to carefully comprehend it. After finishing the wine, Arwa brought Zichen his reward this time. It was a small piece of middle-grade fragment. Its grade was indeed much higher than the gift he had given to Zichen last time. Not long after Arwa left, there was a knock on the door. Before Zichen could respond, the door was pushed open. A stranger stood at the door, looking at Zichen with a scrutinizing gaze. Zichen was displeased that someone had entered uninvited. The other party scanned the room and then sat down across from Zichen. He glanced at Zichen and said, "Remember my name, I'm Rax." "There's something I need you to do," Zichen said. "I don't know you," Rax said indifferently. "It doesn't matter. Just do as I say. Carefully recall the coordinates of your world, or a special place. We're going to your world to take a look. You'll be the guide." His attitude was very arrogant, as if he was talking to a subordinate. Zichen looked at the other party as if he was looking at an idiot. However, he was also alarmed that the other party was actually targeting him. Seeing that Zichen did not immediately respond, Rax leaned forward and said in dissatisfaction, "Are you pretending to be deaf and mute? Let me tell you, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for you to join us. If you know what's good for you, you should seize this opportunity and perform well. Don't be so shameless." Zichen's eyes flashed with anger, and he looked like he was going to tell him to scram. Just then, the door was pushed open again, and Alva walked in. "Rax, what are you doing here?" Lax stood up and smiled faintly. "It's nothing. I just wanted to chat with this well-known coward. Kid, I've already delivered the message. I'll give you a few days to consider." Zichen cut him off. "There's no need to think about it. I can tell you right now that it's impossible. Also, tell the people behind you that if they dare to have any ideas about our world, don't blame me for being impolite." "Just you? A coward?" Rax's face was full of disdain as he sneered. "Even Alva, who's at the initial stage of the trial, doesn't dare to talk to me like that." "Who do you think you are?" Zichen coldly said. "I never joke. I'll advise you again. Don't court death. Kid, you're dead." Rax looked at Zichen as if he was looking at a dead man. He waved his sleeves and left. "Alva, you have to keep an eye on him. Don't let him go out, or else he'll die." Rax laughed and left. "Rax, if you dare to touch Zichen, our boss won't let you go," Alva coldly said. Rax turned around and smiled. "Look at how scared you are. Zichen, right? I'll remember you. If you dare to leave the city, I'll kill you. What's going on?" After Rax left, Alva looked at Zichen. "How did you provoke Rax?" Zichen shook his head. "I didn't provoke him. He took the initiative to find me. He wanted to go to our world through the coordinates, but I didn't agree. This is how the immortal Slaughter City does things. Rax is from Peace City. Although he's usually arrogant, he shouldn't have anything to do with the immortal Slaughter City." Alva's expression changed. He was shocked. "This won't do. I have to go find the boss." Zichen hurriedly said, "There's no need. I can handle this." Alva shook his head and said, "It's not just your problem. If this is really the case, it means that the immortal Slaughter City has begun to infiltrate Peace City. This is a big deal." Alva left after saying that. However, he soon returned with a disappointed expression. "The boss isn't here." Zichen looked at Alva. Rax said that you're at the initial stage of the trial? Are there other stages in the trial level? Alva nodded and said, I didn't tell you before because you haven't advanced to this stage. Since you asked, I'll tell you. The trial level is divided into 3 stages: initial, intermediate, and advanced. I'm at the initial stage, Big Beard and Luo Xiao are at the intermediate stage, and the boss is at the advanced stage. Speaking of the boss, Alva's eyes were filled with regret. Actually, the boss was originally at the Heaven's Chosen stage. He fell to the advanced stage after being schemed against by Seuss. It's been many years. The boss has recovered from his injuries, but he hasn't stepped into the Heaven's Chosen stage again. In Peace City, there are many people like me at the initial stage, followed by the intermediate stage, and the advanced stage is the least. As for the Heaven's Chosen stage, they are very rare. Relatively speaking, the Immortal Slaughter City's overall strength is much stronger than Peace City's. Rax is at the intermediate stage. I can't beat him. Alva noticed that Si Chen's expression was a little strange. He immediately said, Don't underestimate me because of this. With a fragment, most people can reach the initial stage, but it's very difficult to reach the intermediate stage. It'll be even more difficult to advance further. Zichen had already seen Alva's strength, so he didn't dare to underestimate him. At the very least, he couldn't beat Alva now, even if he used the massacre spirit. Therefore, the gap between the two was very obvious. Everyone, come out. Suddenly, the voice of the boss, Helen, was heard. It's the boss. Alva's eyes lit up. He's asking us all to come out. When the two of them came out, the others had already arrived. There's something. Looking at Helen's serious expression, everyone also became serious. Previously, the city lord summoned us. He said that he found a fragment world and wants all the teams in the city to enter. Chapter 4888. Alva told him about Zichen's situation. If everyone left and Zichen was left alone in the city, it would be troublesome. How dare Rax come looking for trouble with Zichen? Does he want to die? Big Beard's eyes flashed coldly. He was also in the middle level of the trial, so of course he wasn't afraid of Rax. Helen tilted her head and looked at Zichen. Zichen said, I'll go with you. I can protect myself and won't be a burden. Helen tilted her head and looked at the others. They all shook their heads, indicating that they didn't have any objections. Everything depended on their boss. After the battle, try not to run too far away. You'll be responsible for your own life. With that, Helen turned and left. Obviously, she agreed to let Zichen follow. Then, the group walked out of the city. Suddenly, Callio said, You guys go first. I'll go back and get something. Helen looked back and didn't say anything. She slowed down a bit. Zichen also looked at Callio. It seemed that they had just heard the news like him. Alva walked on the road, muttering that he didn't rest well this time and was about to fight again. But soon, he was full of excitement. Fragment worlds are very different from other fragment spaces. It's like a world that has fallen into the void. Other than being bigger, there are more good things. There's no such thing as having only one thing, Alva said excitedly. In such a world, fragments above the middle level are most likely to appear. If you're lucky, you might even find a high-level fragment. Other than fragments, you might find something special, such as the inheritance of someone or a great spell. Every world has its own unique and powerful spell. Those broken worlds are the same. As long as you're lucky enough, you can find anything. Alva couldn't forget about fragments above the middle level. It seemed that it wasn't that he didn't want to break through, but that he didn't have the chance. Now that the chance was here, he also wanted to get resources to break through. Callio quickly caught up. They hadn't reached the city gate yet. Alva asked him what he had taken, and he said that he had taken a fragment. Alva laughed and scolded him for putting the fragment in his room. He wasn't afraid that someone would steal it. After leaving the city, Zichen saw that many teams had already gathered outside. Each team had a different number of people, and they each occupied a place. Helen led everyone to the side. Zichen saw many people looking at him. Most of these gazes were filled with ridicule, but there was no malice in them. Only a few gazes were filled with hostility. Zichen once again saw the person called Seuss. From the moment he appeared, Seuss had been staring at him. Zichen suspected that Seuss was looking for him because of Seuss. Zichen did not see Rax. He was not in the crowd. "Helen, I heard that it's very dangerous this time. Do you want to team up?" A man wearing a green robe and carrying a long sword on his back walked over with a smile. He looked like a scholar. "No need." Helen shook her head and refused decisively. The man who was rejected did not stop. He walked straight to Helen and said in a low voice, "I heard that the broken world we're going to is related to the immortal spell realm. It's very dangerous, but there are also many benefits. Everyone is worried that we'll be surrounded by enemies, so they're all trying to form alliances." Helen shook her head again. "No need. I'm used to leading a team. If there's danger, we'll retreat." The man in the green robe smiled and did not continue to pester her. He said some other things, and Helen responded indifferently. At the back, Awil transmitted his voice. "That guy is called Lu Qing. He's like a mangy dog. He used to be in our team, but he left to create a small team. When Boss was still in the Heaven's Chosen Realm, he already had a crush on Boss, but he only dared to do it secretly. But after Boss's cultivation level dropped, this guy thought that his chance had come. He started to have thoughts about Boss. Was our team very big in the past?" Apart from the members of this team, Zichen could only recognize 3 other people, but 2 of them were actually from Helen's team. The team isn't big, but Boss is beautiful and kind. She takes good care of the newcomers, so many people have come and gone over the years. Alva pointed out the number of people to Zichen. There were dozens of people, which surprised Zichen. He turned to look at the city gate. Lax walked out alone. Suddenly, a powerful aura appeared. The void was forcibly torn open by a force. A man in a black robe walked out from the void. There was a trace of envy in Alva's eyes. "He's called Black Dragon, the confidant of the city lord. He's definitely a Heaven's Chosen." Zichen closed his eyes. At this moment, he was still comprehending the Holy Ancestor Hell-Crushing technique. So many people had come, and most of them were in the refinement realm. It was clear that there would be danger. At this time, it was better to be stronger. "Everyone, follow me into the void." After a moment, Black Dragon's voice sounded. He stretched out his hand and tore open the void. A crack with a radius of 3,000 meters appeared. One team after another entered. Helen also led everyone in. The one called Lu Qing had already left. After entering the void, the team at the front had already begun to speed up. Helen said to follow and also sped up. Zichen followed behind. Everyone wasn't moving at full speed, so he could easily keep up. Not long after, a fragment appeared in his field of vision. Even from a distance, he could still see that the fragment was like a millstone. It was nailed in the void by a strange force, illuminating this part of the void. He released his soul power, but when he approached, it was blocked by a resistance. When he was completely close, Zichen was a little shocked. Compared to the world fragment with the realm spirit turtle, this one was much, much bigger. It looked like an irregular planet. There was a huge space in the fragment that was less than the size of a palm. How big was the area in front of him? No wonder all the teams were gathered here. It was because it could accommodate all of them. "This is too amazing!" Alva was also shocked by this scene. His expression became excited. "If I'm lucky, I might be able to break through here." The others' expressions also changed. Zichen noticed that Helen's emotions were also fluctuating. Perhaps she also wanted to find an opportunity to break through in this world. "Everyone, according to the City Lord's estimation, this should be a high-level trial world. So when you come out, each of you will have to pay 2 intermediate fragments or 20 elementary fragments." The one who spoke was Black Dragon. He stood next to the fragment, and his voice reached everyone's ears. No one had any objections. In such a huge world, If they were lucky enough, they might even be able to obtain a high-level fragment. The entrance fee of 2 intermediate fragments wasn't high. This was for the trial level, but for Zichen, it was a little stressful. Alva patted Zichen's shoulder. Don't worry. Boss will definitely help you. Zichen wasn't worried about this problem, but he felt Alva's concern and still nodded. At this moment, everyone began to enter one after another. Helen said, Let's go in too. Chapter 4889. After entering the broken world, it was as if they had arrived in a complete world. This place was extremely wide and filled with lush vegetation. The air was filled with a powerful pressure. The energy of heaven and earth was rich and pure. Even if it was a broken world, its level was still higher than Zichen's Tianwu world. At this moment, people were constantly descending into this world. Then, they flew in different directions in small groups. There seems to be a city over there. Let's go there. Helen looked in a certain direction. Following Helen, they flew over a mountain range. Zichen saw a huge city. There used to be people living here, but now, there was no one left. Dong! Before they even got close to the city, a bell rang in the distance. Layers of ripples visible to the naked eye spread out from the city in front of them. The flesh and blood of 2 people who were close to the trial realm suddenly turned into fine powder and disappeared, leaving behind eerie white bones. They fell from the sky and smashed into the ground. The ripples from the bell were still spreading, but everyone stopped and looked in front of them in shock. This scene was too exaggerated. 2 trial realm cultivators died just like that. Zichen was also shocked. He hadn't even reached the trial realm. If he rashly advanced, wouldn't he die even more miserably? At this moment, the bones on the ground suddenly lit up. The 2 people who were supposed to be dead suddenly ran in the opposite direction. Light circulated around their bodies. The flesh and blood that had disappeared earlier reappeared. They didn't die? Everyone was shocked again. At this moment, the ripples swept past Zichen's body, but no danger occurred. It was like a strong wind sweeping past his body. What's going on? Alva looked in front. Is that bell warning us? Many people gathered around, but no one rashly stepped forward. Helen retracted her soul power. Those 2 are still alive. They just suffered a bit of shock. Their lives aren't in danger. Her eyes were still looking in front. It was obvious that she wanted to take a look inside. That bell was obviously extraordinary. At this moment, many teams were ready to move. There were many people who didn't want to miss this opportunity. Suddenly, a person rushed forward, heading straight for the center of the city. Everyone looked at that person. If he dared to move forward at this time, he was either a fool or full of confidence. Dang! The sound of the bell rang again, and layers of ripples spread out. At this time, a light shield suddenly appeared in that person's hand, forming a defensive barrier, isolating him from the shockwaves. Shwa! As the ripples swept past, the light shield's luster fluctuated and soon dimmed. As the ripples faded away, the unscathed opponent accelerated a second time. It's over! Many people's eyes lit up, and then they moved forward without hesitation. During this period of time, those who possessed defensive items took them out as soon as possible and blocked in front of them. Rays of light flickered as everyone flew towards the city. Dang! 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 The bells rang out continuously, but everyone was prepared in advance, so they were no longer afraid. During this period of time, no one died. Just as they were about to reach the center of the city, their figures suddenly fell to the ground as if they were being dragged down by a strange force. Following that, a powerful shockwave shook the area. Skeletal creatures walked out from the buildings and started attacking the intruders. There was no flesh on their bodies. Their white bones emitted sparkling light, and their strength was extraordinarily great. Caught off guard, several trial realm cultivators were sent flying. Let's go too! Zichen, you stay! After seeing this scene, Helen no longer hesitated and flew straight ahead. During this time, A jade pendant on her waist emitted a bright light, forming a protective barrier. The others followed closely behind, all taking out decent defensive items. Alva glanced at Zichen and said, "Be careful. It's okay. I also have a defensive barrier." Zichen followed him. A ring appeared in his hand, which could be used as a form of defense. The Trial Realm defensive item had already been destroyed by Alva's punch. The bell had not sounded for a long time. Just as they were approaching the depths of the city, a powerful gravitational force suddenly came from the ground. Everyone's figures descended one after another, landing on a street. "Everyone, be careful." Helen walked in front with a knife. Suddenly, a door exploded, and a skeletal creature rushed out, grabbing at Helen, who was closest to it. The surrounding gravity suddenly changed, and the skeletal creature's momentum paused. The knife flashed past its neck. The skeletal creature's head flew up, but its body was still moving forward. It did not fall. Helen's expression did not change. The large knife in her hand swept horizontally like a stick, and with a bang, the skeletal creature was sent flying. After landing, the skeletal creature's body loosened, but it did not die. Instead, it struggled to reform its body. Bang! 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 Just as Helen temporarily dealt with the skeletal creature, more skeletal creatures rushed out of the houses on both sides of the street, instantly surrounding the group. The flowing knife appeared in Zichen's hand, and he slashed forward without hesitation. Mountain cutting technique. The knife flashed like a waterfall, landing on a skeletal creature. Accompanied by a powerful vibration, the skeletal creature's body was pushed back. After retreating more than 10 feet, it stabilized its body and rushed forward again. Zichen was very surprised that it did not scatter, so he slashed out with his saber again. This time, the knife went straight for the skeletal creature's neck. Clang! Like the sound of metal clashing, the skeletal creature retreated again. Zichen also retreated, no longer hoping to scatter the skeletal creature. In this place, the disadvantage of his combat strength was already apparent. The others blocked the skeletal creatures with ease. After knowing that they could not kill them, they all repelled the skeletal creatures, no longer hoping to kill them. However, Helen, who was walking at the front, continuously scattered the skeletal creatures, saving the others a lot of trouble. "Zichen, you walk in the middle!" Alva turned around and shouted. Zichen had been slower than the others because he had to keep slashing backward. Zichen nodded. At this moment, a violent energy suddenly came from the front. Dozens of skeletal creatures suddenly rushed out of a very large house, blocking the road in an instant. Between Zichen and Alva, there were at least a dozen skeletons blocking the way. "Zichen!" Alva shouted and rushed toward them. "Don't worry about me. You guys continue to go deeper. If I can't do it, I'll go back." Zichen took the initiative to retreat. During this time, he repeatedly slashed out, repelling the skeletal creatures one after another. Right at this moment, a fierce aura suddenly came from behind Zichen. Boundless killing intent surged out from the aura. Zichen turned around and slashed forward with the flowing knife in his hand. A long spear was already in front of him, carrying a powerful aura. The one holding the spear was a young man. Zichen had seen him in Peace City when he was with Zeus. Chapter 48-90. After throwing Zichen into the group of skeletons, the youth sneered and stood in the distance, watching the show with his spear. Piesa walked over from the distance with 5 people beside him. Seeing the scene in front of him, he frowned slightly. The youth gestured to him, telling him not to worry. Piesa nodded and said, "Since that's the case, I'll give you an official mission. After you complete it, go back and get your reward." As he spoke, Piesa threw out a jade plate. The youth caught it and smiled faintly. "Killing a guy who's not even in the training realm is a piece of cake." He seemed very confident. Buzz! The flowing blade in Zichen's hand turned into a ray of light and slashed forward, landing on the skeletons' bodies. A clanging sound erupted and sparks flew everywhere. More skeletons approached Zichen and surrounded him. "Zichen!" Alva shouted. The situation on his side was not good. Suddenly, more skeletons appeared and rushed over. Helen, who was walking at the front, noticed the abnormality behind her. Her eyes were cold. "You guys continue forward." She turned around and went to support Zichen. At this moment, there was laughter. Piesser flew over from the side. "Helen, long time no see. Want to chat with me?" Helen's eyes flashed with killing intent. The gravity around them suddenly changed, as if they had entered a gravitational space. Helen slashed down with her giant blade. Piesser laughed. He seemed unconcerned, but his expression was serious. He pushed his palms forward and a light wheel appeared between his palms. Clang! A clanging sound rang out. He blocked Helen's attack and retreated out of the gravitational field at the same time. Piesser smiled. "Helen, look behind you!" At this moment, a few dozen white bone creatures appeared behind Helen and were charging towards her. "Don't worry about me. I have a way to escape." At this moment, Zichen's voice sounded in Helen's mind. Hearing this confident voice, Helen turned around to deal with the skeletons. Piesser was a little surprised, but he did not say anything. He leaped into the distance. During this time, he turned around to take a look. Zichen was still surrounded by the skeletal creatures, and he was the only one facing them. It was difficult for him to deal with them. He smiled slightly and left at ease. Holding the black spear, Luanduo was still watching. It seemed like he was waiting for an opportunity to give Zichen a fatal blow. Boom! Suddenly, a circular ring appeared in Zichen's hand. Next, the circular ring expanded in size to push the nearby skeletal creatures several zhang away. A look of surprise flashed across Luanduo's eyes. "There's actually such a method?" After shaking off the skeletons, Zichen did not follow the team. Instead, he flew toward Luanduo. Luanduo smiled. "Interesting." The long spear in his hand trembled, stirring up countless beams of misty light. His spear pierced into the void. The tip of the spear trembled as boundless energy surged out. In Zichen's vision, there were nearly 100 spear lights approaching from afar. These spear lights were not illusory, they were all real. 1. A black mountain appeared in front of Zichen. It was like a huge mountain, with a powerful aura flowing around it. It blocked in front of him. The spear lights landed on the mountain, making clanking sounds. They were all blocked. Luanduo was surprised. A look of greed flashed across his eyes. "Your cultivation level is not high, but you have a lot of good stuff. Great, these things are mine. Mountain slash!" Zichen stood on top of the mountain and slashed down with his saber. The saber light pierced through the sky and went straight for Luanduo. Luanduo shook his spear and immediately broke the saber light. "Your attack is too weak." Shoo! Right at this moment, Zichen had already arrived. His speed was beyond Luanduo's imagination. At such a close distance, the long saber slashed toward Luanduo's neck. Zichen did not believe that his neck would be as tough as those skeletal creatures. Clang! The long spear blocked the attack. The powerful shockwave forced Zichen to retreat several shang. Luanduo stood where he was with a sneer in his eyes. "You overestimate yourself." The aura around his body suddenly changed, and boundless black energy surged out from his body. Vaguely, a single-horned black python appeared behind him. The black python's aura was terrifying as it stared at Zichen. "Kid, I haven't killed anyone after reaching the training realm. You are the first." Luanduo's aura turned black as well. It seemed like he had fused with the black python behind him. Zichen felt a powerful pressure. He did not dare to be careless. The black mountain returned to his side. "Remember, this move is called Poison Dragon." The black python hissed and instantly disappeared into the long spear. Then, Luanduo's aura seemed to disappear. He had also fused with the long spear. In this world, there was only this spear. Zichen felt a strong threat of death. The black mountain in front of him enlarged without hesitation. It was like a mountain blocking in front of him. Shoo! A black light first pierced through the black mountain and then through Zichen's body. There was a bloody hole in Zichen's chest. His vitality was quickly disappearing. Soon, he became weak. His face was very pale. There was shock in his eyes. The black mountain left by Gushan was destroyed just like that. Crack! Crack! Cracks appeared on the black mountain from the hole. Then, it exploded and completely shattered. You're still not dead? Lun Duo's voice came from behind. His face was a little pale. He was very surprised. He had used up a lot of energy to use this move, but he still could not kill his opponent. Zichen said calmly, I almost died. It was Hei Feng who risked his life to save me. Lun Duo suddenly felt something was wrong. He immediately ran away. His opponent was clearly heavily injured. Although he did not know why he had such a feeling, he trusted his intuition. Buzz! The world shook. A light suddenly flew forward and covered Lun Duo's body. It was the ring that had more than 200 points. It was called Spirit Lock. The ring trapped Lun Duo, making him unable to move. In the next moment, the broken sword appeared. Like a flowing light, the broken sword instantly entered Lun Duo's sea of consciousness. When they were at close range, Zichen's move could even defeat Alva, let alone a guy who had just reached the training realm. Puff! The broken sword pierced through Lun Duo's sea of consciousness. It turned into a flowing light and flew to Zichen's side. Lun Duo's body fell to the ground. The ring flew back to him. However, when he landed, a soul light suddenly flew out from Lun Duo's body and flew into a jade plate. In the next moment, the jade plate flew away. Zichen was stunned. He was not dead. He flew forward and landed beside Lun Duo's body. He saw Lun Duo's spear. He picked it up. He lost the Black Mountain and got the spear. It could be considered as making up for his loss. Lun Duo's escape method was quite clever. That jade plate seemed to be suitable for souls to live in. Zichen did not know that the jade plate was actually prepared for him by Pieser to imprison his soul. Putting away the spear, Zichen looked ahead. There were more skeletons blocking his way. Puff! He could not hold it in anymore. He coughed out a mouthful of blood. His breath became weaker. If the Black Mountain had not neutralized the power of the spear, he would have died. Now there were so many skeletons blocking his way. It was impossible for the injured Zichen to continue moving forward. It seemed that he could only retreat. At this moment, someone suddenly exclaimed, "There's a fragment in the room! P.S. There are 2 wrong names in 2 chapters. They have been changed. Uploaded today. Is there anyone reading Thunder Warrior in 17K?" Chapter 4891. Zichen, who was about to retreat, suddenly heard the scream. There was a room not far from him. Would there be a fragment in there? At this moment, Zichen was tempted. He felt that he could still fight, but he had to treat his injuries first. Speaking of which, he had not suffered such a serious injury in a long time. Furthermore, he was only 1 step away from death. Following the sound, the city became even more chaotic. If he was not careful, the good stuff would be gone. Zichen was anxious and decided to go in now. However, he suddenly stopped after walking for more than 10 feet. A strong aura surged from the depths of the city. Dong! Another bell rang, and layers of ripples spread out in all directions. Zichen quickly took out the ring. Speaking of which, the bell had not rung for a long time. Could it be that someone had reached the depths of the city and caused the bell to ring? Suddenly, Zichen widened his eyes and looked to the side. There used to be a body there. It was left behind by Lun Duo's soul after it escaped. However, as the ripples passed by, the flesh on Lun Duo's body disappeared, leaving behind only a skeleton. In the next moment, the skeleton stood up. At first, it swayed as if it was not used to it, but it soon became agile. It turned its head and looked at Zichen. Both of them looked at each other. The skeleton exerted force on its legs and rushed forward. It was unknown whether Zichen was too close to it, or it had some fragmented memories of its past life and knew that he was its enemy. Luan Duo blocked in front of him, and the skeleton landed on it, causing sparks to erupt. The powerful force pushed Zichen back. Whoosh! At close range, Zichen pulled out his sword and slashed at Luan Duo's neck. When Luan Duo's body was still alive, Zichen was confident that he could chop off his head. However, it seemed that he was not so confident now. As expected, in the midst of the sparks, Zichen was pushed back, but Luan Duo's neck was intact. How could this be? In a short period of time, Luan Duo's body was much stronger than before. Luan Duo's skeleton approached him again. Its hand was like a weapon that was aimed at his injured heart. Zichen retreated once again. Even with his injuries, he felt the pressure of facing this skeleton. Fortunately, after using the lightning escape technique, his speed was faster than the skeleton's. Thus, Zichen changed direction and entered the nearest room. Upon entering the room, Zichen discovered that the place had long been destroyed beyond recognition. There was nothing decent left. There was a magic array on the floor of the hall, and a very small piece of law fragment was floating above the magic array. Zichen released his perception to investigate. The array seemed to be some kind of spirit-gathering array. The surrounding spirit chi was converging here. At first glance, it seemed like a person was meditating here to cultivate and refine the fragments. It was Luan Duo's skeletons chasing after them. Zichen did not hesitate anymore. He reached out his hand and took the shard. After a few rounds of disillusionment, the formation below also collapsed. Holding the fragment, Zichen realized that it was different from the fragments he normally obtained. This fragment was more like a combination of energy and fragments. Boom! The door exploded as the skeleton chased after him. Zichen leaped and used the lightning escape technique to get out of the window. Suddenly his eyes lit up. This thing was neither a fragment nor energy. It was something like an elixir. With this discovery, Zichen tried to refine it. As the energy in his body flashed, the fragment instantly turned into a pure energy and entered his body. His injuries began to recover. This discovery made Zichen ecstatic. He thought that he would have to bid farewell to this place. Now, it seemed that there was still hope. After this energy entered his body, it began to heal Zichen's injuries as if he had swallowed an amazing elixir. Bang! The window shattered as the skeleton chased after him. Zichen did not waste any more time. He directly used the broken sword and chopped off the skeleton's head. At the same time, he raised his hand and shot out a ray of energy. The energy wrapped around the head and flew away. The skeleton continued to charge forward with a fierce attack. Zichen's figure flashed and dodged the attack. At the same time, the broken sword turned back and completely dismantled the skeleton. Ignoring the skeleton that was slowly wriggling and reassembling, Zichen rushed forward. That small fragment allowed his heavily injured body to recover a lot. The advantage of the lightning escape technique was completely displayed at this moment. Zichen almost brushed past the skeleton's body and broke into the second room. The fragments here were smaller than the ones he found before, but it was better than nothing. After Zichen got it, he swallowed it in one gulp. Healing his injuries was the most important thing right now. The door was already blocked by the skeleton. Zichen forced his way through the room and escaped to the other side. Then, the rumbling sound continued. Zichen broke through one building after another, looking for the fragments. Not every room had fragments. If he was lucky, he could find about half of them in 10 rooms. However, as Zichen went deeper, his harvest became less and less because most of them had been rummaged through. He did not know how these fragments were formed, but as he went deeper, his injuries had completely recovered. Now that Zichen had maintained his full strength, he was full of confidence when he went forward again. There were fewer and fewer fragments that could be found. The bell in the depths rang frequently, and fluctuations swept across his body. This forced Zichen to wander around the periphery. Other than some fragments, there was only the formation pattern on the ground left. Since his injuries had been healed, Zichen was not afraid of those skeleton creatures at all. The ring expanded into a huge circle, surrounding the entire room. All the skeleton creatures that were close to it would be forced back. Zichen stood in the room and silently looked at the formation pattern on the ground. Above the formation pattern, there was a fragment the size of a fingernail floating. The spirit chi between heaven and earth was gathering towards the formation pattern. In Zichen's perception, the formation pattern was condensing this energy a second time. Finally, it gathered at the top and formed this unique fragment. This was a formation pattern that could create fragments. It was a miracle. Zichen did not pay much attention to it before, but the more he looked at it, the more shocked he was. Compared to the fragments here, the value of the formation pattern was obviously greater. Zichen did not have extravagant hopes for the things in the depths. He planned to carefully study the formation pattern here. If he could comprehend it, it would naturally be of great benefit. Dang! However, just as Zichen calmed down and prepared to feel it, the bell suddenly rang. This time, it did not come from afar, but from the sea of consciousness. The bell rang far away, but it carried an unshakable will. Zichen's mind, which had sunk into the formation pattern, was forcefully shaken out. This caused Zichen's expression to change. Blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. His soul power was violently shaken. The bell was actually stopping him. Zichen tried again, but it was still the same. Furthermore, the power of the shock was getting stronger. However, Zichen discovered a part of the secret of the formation pattern from the bell. If he continued to investigate, he would definitely discover something. Dang! The bell rang, stirring up powerful ripples in the surroundings. The bell that originally rang in the soul had now filled the room. The room was shaking. More and more blood flowed from the corner of Zichen's mouth. His entire soul was shaking violently, and it would collapse at any time. If he wanted to completely comprehend it, it would take a very long time. Zichen was destined to return empty-handed. Just as his consciousness was about to withdraw, there was a sudden sound in the room. A black stone appeared out of thin air and floated above Zichen's head, stirring up ripples in the space. Chapter 4892. The vibrations in the room returned to normal, and the ripples also disappeared. A piece of black stone floated above Zichen's head, suppressing all abnormalities. Zichen, who was about to withdraw his consciousness, suddenly became clear. The ringing of the bell disappeared. He saw what was happening outside, and he was both surprised and delighted. He didn't expect that piece of black stone to reveal such an extraordinary sight at this time. His mind was clear, and without the disturbance of the bell, Zichen's consciousness gradually sank into the runes. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that these runes were divine runes. The runes were very complex and mysterious, and Zichen was immersed in them. The ring that enveloped the room emitted light, and the attacks of the skeletons became even more intense. Facing the constant attacks, the light of the ring dimmed, and the skeletons seemed to be able to rush in at any time. The black stone that was suppressing the ringing of the bell suddenly trembled again. With a boom, ripples spread out in all directions. Wherever the ripples passed, the skeletons would fall apart and scatter to the ground. They didn't reassemble, and it was as if they were dead. The surroundings became incomparably quiet. The battles in other places couldn't affect this place, and the ringing of the bell would automatically disappear after reaching here. Zichen's mind was clear, and it was as if he had entered the long river of history, and he was closely watching the birth of divine runes. One rune after another enlarged in front of his eyes, and all kinds of trajectories appeared. Zichen, who had some understanding of divine runes, slowly understood from his confusion to enlightenment. After an unknown period of time, Zichen heard the sound of a bell from afar. This bell no longer had any intention of disturbing him, and it was instead filled with an ethereal feeling. He opened his eyes, and a divine light flickered in his eyes. He glanced at the divine runes below, and the divine runes exploded, and the fragments were caught by Zichen. With a thought, this energy entered Zichen's body. It was second only to the void fragments, and it increased Zichen's energy. The black stone fell from above, and Zichen held it in his hand. He carefully examined it, but he still didn't find anything. Evidently, the black stone still had a huge secret. Zichen kept it. If it wasn't for the black stone, Zichen wouldn't have been able to obtain the divine imprints. Zichen walked out of the room, put away the ring, and saw the bones scattered all over the floor. The previously motionless skeleton was now struggling and wriggling, ready to stand up at any moment. Zichen tapped his foot and quickly flew out of this place. At this moment, there was almost no one in the periphery. Everyone had entered the depths of the city. The fluctuations of the battle continued to spread. It should have reached the climax. Zichen knew that he was weak and would not be able to get anything even if he went deeper. Therefore, he wandered around the outer rooms, looking for something. His luck was not bad. He found fragments of different sizes. After a thorough search of a large area, he was ready to leave. Scram! An angry roar suddenly came from the depths, followed by a loud rumble. Two figures of light soared into the sky and fought in midair. Helen, do you think you are qualified to snatch something from me? This was Piesser's voice. He leaped high into the air and kicked Helen's head. Helen was smashed to the ground, and the huge saber flew out of her hand. Zichen saw this scene from afar, and his expression changed. Ha ha! No one is going to snatch it from me! Piesser stood in midair, laughing proudly. He was holding a golden brilliance in his hand. Mine! This is mine! Piesser swung the golden brilliance. A bell rang, and golden ripples surged out. Those who rushed towards Piesser were sent flying one after another. Piesser got the bell? Zichen looked at the distant sky and couldn't help but be shocked. At this moment, the bell rang again, but it didn't come from Piesser's direction. Instead, it came from another direction. Another person soared into the sky and obtained a golden brilliance. Zichen was stunned. Why were there two golden bells? Soon after, a third and a fourth golden bell appeared in 4 different directions. Zichen discovered that although the bell was loud, it didn't seem to have the same power as before. Clang! An even louder bell rang out, and the entire city suddenly shook. It was as if a strange power had pierced through the city, and a rumbling sound could be heard from the ground. It's underground! Then there were more cries of surprise. Another brilliance leaped up, and then quickly descended. For a moment, the brilliance flickered continuously. Everyone flew down. It seemed that there was another huge space underground. During this time, the battle was still going on, accompanied by a huge commotion. Zichen hesitated whether or not to go over. After all, his cultivation level was low, and he was completely the weakest existence here. Helen, you're courting death, so don't blame me for it. In the sky, Piesser suddenly unleashed a powerful attack. Zichen heard the others' cries of surprise. He, who had been hesitating, flew straight into the depths. Helen might be in danger. When he used the lightning escape to rush forward, he took out the black stone. Perhaps it could save her life at a critical moment. Piesser, you are too much! This was the bearded man's voice. Light circulated above his head, blocking the descending attack. But it only blocked for a few breaths of time. The light dissipated, and the bearded man fell to the ground. Humph! Piesser looked at them, his eyes flashing coldly. If I see you again, don't blame me for not giving you a way out. As soon as he finished speaking, Piesser entered the ground. At this moment, most of the others had left. When Zichen arrived, only Helen's team was left. Helen was injured, the bearded man was wounded, and the others were not in good condition. Zichen, why are you here? After seeing Zichen, everyone's expression changed. Because the guy who only had a soul left had run out. At that time, everyone was very surprised. How is the boss? Zichen walked up. It's nothing serious. Just some injuries. Helen shook her head, but in the next moment, she coughed up blood again. Zichen hurriedly took out a few fragments and handed them to Helen. Helen shook her head again and said, You stay here and don't go down. The golden bell ran down. It will be more dangerous down there. Helen was injured. Once she went down to fight, she would not be able to take care of Zichen. But in your situation. Zichen looked at Helen. She was already injured, so it might be more dangerous if she went down. We will act according to the circumstances. Helen ate a fragment that was in better condition. Obviously, she had also gained something on the way. Zichen nodded his head and watched as the group entered the underground. During this time, Alva waved at him, telling him to leave quickly. Zichen took a few steps forward and saw a huge deep pit. The pit was pitch black and could not be explored by soul power. Zichen did not intend to go in. There was no more here. There were many houses around, so he could look for fragments. Just as he was about to leave, the black stone in his hand suddenly vibrated and made a dong sound. A ripple spread out in all directions, and a distorted space appeared right in front of Zichen. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.